Thank you. Welcome everybody to the January meeting of the Planning Committee, the Ealing Planning Committee, the first meeting of 2021. Welcome to everybody watching us on the Council's YouTube channel as well. We conduct these meetings now, as you know, electronically. I will explain as we go through to those participating and those watching what's going on and what they need to do. My name is Councillor Steve Donnelly. I'm the Vice Chair of the Planning Committee and the Chair of this evening's meeting. So going through the agenda as we have it, apologies for absence and substitutions. Everyone is here, so there are no apologies for absence, nor are there any substitutions. Urgent matters, I've not been made aware of any. Declarations of interest. Any members of the committee wish to make a declaration of interest?
Chair, just want to confirm that I was contacted with one of the Hounslow councillors, but I think maybe everybody was. I just wanted to put that on record.
Yes, Councillor Biddulph, I think, who's mentioned within the briefing note we received this afternoon, also sent me an email, which I saw today. But I think the matters are all contained within the report. Thank you. Matters to be considered in private. Again, I'm not aware of any. Minutes of the last meeting of 16th of December. I didn't chair that meeting. Some of you, I'm sure, were on it. Can I take those minutes as agreed?
Agreed, Chair. I was there. Completely agreed.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I was there. Just agreed, Steve.
Yeah, that's good enough for me, Ray. Site visit site visit attendance. We're not, because of coronavirus, currently doing site visits in the way that we would normally do. We would hope at some point to get back to that, but as we all know, we have big problems to deal with. On to the three items, substantive items for this evening. The first of those being TfL land holdings at Bollo Lane, Acton, W38QU. This one is being introduced by Mr. Greg Gray, he's the responsible officer. So, Greg, if I can hand over to you.
Thank you, Chair. How do I? What? Sorry, just getting it up, Chairman.
Yeah. Success. Well, you're sharing.
Thank you.
That's it. You got it now.
You can see it now, yeah. Good.
Yeah.
So as you know, it's TfL Land Holdings, Bollo Lane, Acton, Chair. A large number of slides, I'm afraid, because it's quite a convoluted application. I'll try not to go through them too fast, but we can always go back if we need to. So the site, in its context, it's a sinuous, narrow site running north-south between a level crossing on the south side of Bollo Lane to Gunnersbury Lane on the top here. Acton Station is a marker point listed building, and then the site fronts onto Bollo Lane on one side and railway line on t'other. This is obviously, you can see the northing is to the right, so as you imagine how it might be, this is essentially how the site is currently laid out. Starting on the south side here, where the level crossing is, there is staff parking for TfL employees.
Greg, can I ask you to put it in slideshow? Greg, can I ask you to put it in slideshow mode so that we get the biggest possible picture?
Okay, yeah, all right. So, right, is that better?
Thanks. That is okay, better, yes.
Thank you.
It's a big site, Chair.
Yeah.
So on the south side here, we have a TfL staff car park, an access road leading to the Acton Works side, which is TfL, which lies within Hounslow Borough. So in essence, we are on the western boundary of Ealing between us and Hounslow Borough. and there's a service road leading to the north where there is a large parking area for TfL servicing vehicles. And this building here in blue is Frank Pick House. It's a locally listed building, post-expressionist. I'll show you photographs of it in a minute. It's used for maintenance of plant, mainly escalators and the like, by TfL. So that's in effect the extent of their operational use, up as far as the existing train crew accommodation, which I'll explain the location of in a minute. And then beyond that, there are, which is situated in here, and then beyond that, there are some small commercial undertakings. This small area of land here is a substation. It's not within the application site. And then this is one of the plots here ending with Acton Town Station on that side there. So just looking at some photographs. This is the existing train crew building viewed from Bollo Lane. And this is Frank Pick House. As I said, it's locally listed postmodern architectural design. It gets its name, Frank Pick, from the architect who designed most of TfL's, as they are now known, buildings, including Acton Town Station. And then you have some of the commercial uses. This one actually lies immediately behind the railway station. The cursor pointing at the back of the station here are the commercial undertakings, variety of uses, car sales, MOTs, kitchen furniture, etc. And then looking back from Bollo Lane, looking north, new development going in the area of the regeneration area, Acton Gardens, and then turning around, looking south. This is the remains of an old wall that was actually used to carry a railway line across it. And then this is 100 Bollo Lane, the pocket living development, which we'll have another look at in due course. Further views from within the site. So as I was saying before, this is the road that goes into the Acton Works from Bollo Lane. This is a ramp up to the large area of vehicle parking. And there's the pocket living 100 Bollo Lane development site and staff parking. Then you spin around, looking at a large open expansive area. This is a TfL service vehicles parked on here, and then a view from the rear of Frank Pick House, which gives you a sense of the level of the railway line, which borders the western boundary of the site, and spinning around again, looking towards new development taking place off Bollo Lane, and then back to look at the buildings within the TfL operation. This is a storage and repair building, and then this is the train crew accommodation. This is another view of the train crew accommodation. And then some views of the street scene currently from Bollo Lane. This top left-hand view is actually at the southernmost extremity of the site, at around the point where you currently wait to cross the level crossing that goes along Bollo Lane. So you're looking to the north here, and then this is, as it were, if you were to cross over to the other side of the road and look back, seen this view already, the old retaining wall and 100 Bollo Lane situated here. And then you'll notice that there is no footway at all at this point. So it's not at all. Oh, now I've done it. Now, teach me for being so excited. I'll come back to them, Chair, if I need to. I think we're getting a feel for what the character is. This is another part of the footway, very narrow at the moment, as you see, with a fenced edge to it. And then this is looking again to the other side of Bollo Lane. And then at the top where we reach Gunnersbury Lane, here's the edge of the railway station here and the zebra crossing. And you'll notice vehicles parked in connection with the business uses here. And effectively, there's no meaningful pedestrian access across the road. And then these are the designations affecting the site. There is a sink and green corridor occupying the whole of the railway line, including this area here in green. There is an area tree preservation order effectively covering the perimeters of the open areas, and a green corridor as well forms part of the same. And then the locally significant industrial site, of which this site is a part in its totality, as I've outlined here, all the way across and across there. So the site is part of that. So moving along to design development. And this explains essentially how the scheme has been developed through a long period of pre-application consultation. with the GLA, with Mayor Design Advocacy panels, with design review panels, and then with between consultation between officers, essentially to arrive at the massing forms that we have now, and in particular with regard to the key 25-storey building which sits at the southern end of the site, and how it's gone through an extensive design iteration to produce the form that we have currently now, a more slender design of building, sculpted and sheared to provide better articulation and better and more optimal use of the site. So that in effect the tower has a more slender and narrower appearance than say its neighbours have, giving a smaller footprint and greater emphasis to public realm. And we'll come on to that. And then this is a hybrid planning application. In essence, it's a single application, but it contains components for a full application and for an outline application. The first part of the full application site, as indicated here, is a replacement of the train crew accommodation building, which currently sits there, into this location here, and in association with that, a widening of the footway to Bollo Lane. The other full application component is the 25-storey tower, 195 flats, ground and first floor business activities, and then the outline component, which I'll refer to as plots 2B to 2F, occupy these areas here. There's no particular magic to the colours other than they help to identify the breakdown. There's no phasing, no staging. It essentially helps to understand how the development comes forward. And then there is a small element here because of the substation, which in fact is an extension of the public footpath, in order to get this continuous sense of footway through the development, which is a key component of the design. And then this is how the scheme generally then is produced. To give yourself positioning is again the level crossing, 100 Bollo Lane. This is the 25-storey tower. It's called plot 3A. And then the plots that are identified as 2B, that starts this way for some reason or another, to 2F comprise the outline application towers, interspersed with areas of public open space and amenity space for the development, and then plot 1A, the new train crew accommodation. These numbers here refer to themed areas for these open spaces because they are a key component of the overall design. In order to manage the outline application element of the proposals, there's a design code and what are called parameter plans. And in essence, what they do is that they control the physical separation and spacing and size of the outline application components. This is actually one of the application drawings, and as you can see, it actually has detailed measurements showing what the position is of the buildings, and the whole purpose of that is to ensure that the development, as each phase or each stage comes forward, if they don't come forward all together, can come forward in a managed and unified way so that all the overall objectives of the development are ultimately achieved. That applies equally to the heights of the outline application. So here we have the full application elements, plot 3A, that is the precise proposal. Plot 1A, the train crew building. So they're the full application elements. And then there are design parameters controlling the height, maximum and minimum heights of the towers in the outline application blocks, as they might be conceived, so that they do not go above those heights and would not, in order to accommodate the range of development, want to be less than those heights. So the uppermost level is the light green, lowermost is the blue. And then we have a breakdown of the mix of residential within the scheme. It's a mixed-use scheme, and I'll come on to deal with the business element of it in a minute. But in essence, we have 852 flats in a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bed, all built to rent. The affordable element is 50% by habitable rooms, and there is 50% proposed in the first phase, plot 3A. I'll clarify that plot 1A, the train crew building, is not a residential use. It's literally just rest space, meeting rooms, etc. for train staff. So it doesn't have any residential element within it. So it's not subject to any of the requirements with regard to housing, amenity space or affordable housing. So the only residential components affected therefore are plot 3A. And then within the whole of the scheme, again, a breakdown of the mix between the various tenures. And as you can see, within the first phase of the plot 3A, you have LLR, that's a London Living Rent, and DMR, Discount Market Rent units. There's 95 of those and 100 market rent properties. And then broadly similar within the rest of the scheme, although in the second phase, in the outline phase, you have both LLR and LAR, London Affordable Rent, as well as Discount Market Rent. And that produces 399 units in the wider phase and 453 across the board. So that gives you the mix. And then coming on to the commercial element, because this is LSIS, there is a requirement to match industrial floor space on the site. Now, the LSIS is a London plan policy, so we've been guided by the GLA on the provision. And it's important to take note of the fact that according to LSIS policy in the London plan, operational TfL land is not subject to the same rigours with regard to like-for-like provision. So there is no absolute requirement to meet or repeat the amount of TfL land use currently within the scheme. This left-hand column here gives you a breakdown of what the position is currently. So although there is a total of 5,750 square metres of existing floor space, only the vast majority of it is TfL operational land, as indicated here, 2,060 plus 1,950 square metres rather, and then there's 1,740 square metres of commercial floor space, which in effect comprises the small business uses that I indicated to you earlier at this end of the site. The proposal, as you can see here, now this colour coding is not is in order to help understand these colours better, not because I like playing with paint box, but in essence what you can see here is that within plot 3A there's an element of business use class and light industrial development, and then within these areas here, within these parts of the scheme, there is commercial land use all at the ground floor level, and then in these areas here which are residential only, there is no commercial or business use. TfL did not want to see any mixing of business uses above ground floors on business use space in order to minimise adverse impacts between the two, so that these uses are therefore going to have a long-term viable future rather than coming under pressure from developers to change the use of them, and they would effectively face onto Bollo Lane. The scheme also includes, well, the reason why the site includes Bollo Lane is because it also includes a number of highway enhancements to benefit public and cycle access through the scheme, as well as a new footway, which I'm going to talk to in a minute. So it's picked up some key pinch points within Bollo Lane at the moment that do not facilitate or benefit pedestrian access between the area, and this is going to be very important because in fact pedestrian accessibility east-west across Bollo Lane is a key component of community engagement in terms of using open space, etc., within the development. So the first thing to do, remember that photograph I showed you of the very, very tight footway at the top of Bollo Lane with Gunnersbury Lane. So that's being widened there to immediately provide that improvement. There is, as you can see, also a section of footway within the new plot 1A, so it'll work around like that, pending the release of this substation. It's not part of the application side, as I say. Second component is at the junction of Roslin Road and Bollo Lane, a new pedestrian crossing to allow enable residents to cross from one side of the road, and then moving down as we go towards, this is the Stanhope Way entrance to the Acton Works. In essence, what's proposed here is a speed table and pedestrian crossing, and the whole point of that is to calm traffic on Bollo Lane, especially where it comes away from the level crossing, and to facilitate easy movement from one side of Bollo Lane to the other. And then another measure which is proposed is in front of plot 3A is a raised table, so that it essentially allows the public to access from one side of Bollo Lane to the other. Probably be most useful when the level crossing is down and the public can then walk across there freely, but they've got level access. And then a key design element of the scheme, as I've said, is a new continuous footway cycleway along Bollo Lane as part of the scheme. This is the new buildings set within it, and as you can see, as it as it moves to the south, it widens and widens till you get to plot 3A. This drawing here gives you a sense of what we're talking about in terms of the new space. Now, there is actually a 9-metre level drop between Gunnersbury Lane and plot 3A, so there is a large part of the site which is actually raised above the level of Bollo Lane. That's why there's an embankment at the moment to Bollo Lane. So the scheme reflects that by effectively putting commercial and other land uses at ground level on Bollo Lane, and then the residential sitting above it and the open spaces sitting above that as well, so that they sort of sit above the level of the footway until you reach about this point here, where essentially the ground level is the same. But obviously this is a key and very important design element of the scheme, not only in terms of the new footway that's created, but also the avenue and the safe pedestrian route that will be provided, and will be a key component of the placemaking benefits of this scheme. With regard to vehicular access through the site, there will be a new one-way shared surface road coming from Stanhope Way, and it will rise to the back of the site. As I say, it's one way only for vehicles, and you would exit either through there or at that point there. This is an image of how it would look. Obviously, it would be designed to take access for commercial and industrial undertakings as well from there, but obviously for the general public and people and cyclists, etc., and for people backwards and forwards, there is no such restriction. As a result of the key landscape improvements to the site, the development also achieves through the landscaping an immediate net gain of 4.87% in biodiversity units in the new landscaping and new tree planting, which I'll outline in a minute. It doesn't sound fantastic at this moment, but that's actually day one. That net gain will increase over time as trees and planting matures to create a more diverse unit. But there is, as you can see here, an immediate day one gain of 137% for on-site hedgerow planting. So there's a major key component of the new development. And then with regard to the urban greening factor, it achieves across the development a 0.42 against the London Plan target of 0.4 for residential-led schemes. And there was resulting green corridor enhancements. And then I outline below what the ecological advantages are. And a headline point there for you to note is that whilst all 68 existing trees in the TPO, which are generally of mixed quality, are to be removed, they are to be replaced immediately with 251 new trees as part of the development, the vast majority of which will be planted along Bollo Lane as plots come forward. Then you have green roofs, native planting, and the extensive public realm and landscaping around plot 3A, which will be delivered on day one. And within this overall concept is the integration of the access between these spaces with the east side of Bollo Lane and the wider residential area. Just outlining the open space components of the scheme. As I said, each open space is themed. It will have its own design characteristics around the form and function that it will be offering, so there will be variety within the scheme. And I emphasise they are accessible to the public at large, so they're not confined, they're not fenced off, they're not screened off from Bollo Lane. The public can use them and indeed walk backwards and forwards between the shared space. The only thing the public at large would not have access to, as you would expect, of course, is for podium and rooftop open and play spaces, because you need to have security for residents. So there are 5 courtyard spaces, 10 themed play areas and roof terraces within the scheme. Roof terrace amenity spaces within each block and they are accessible to the whole of each block regardless of tenure. Balconies to council standards. And then we have an overall component of 1.6 hectares of tenure blind amenity space that's within the wider area. And then we also have 0.4 hectares of new public amenity space, which is essentially the new footway cycleway on Bollo Lane. And it's important to bear in mind that however extensive that is not counted against any of the open space or amenity space within the scheme. So it's actually a net gain, which is not as it were, sold off against any shortfall within the overall scheme. And in fact, in terms of open space and play space, this is the clarification. The only the play space standards are met for the 0 to 4 and 5 to 11 age groups. In fact, there is overall an excess of play space. The applicant, rather than providing for 12 plus age group play space on site, prefers to make a financial contribution towards that, and in doing so, some of that excess space has been taken into additional play space for the younger age groups, which is a much more effective use of that provision. No formal sports are proposed on site, so there is sorry, carried away again. No formal sports proposed on site. This is a financial contribution. Likewise, no allotments, so financial contribution to that as well. So moving on to look at each plot in turn. Plot 1A, the train crew building, which I indicated previously. There is Acton Station, Grade 2 listed building, designed by Frank Pick, with the existing business uses and car parking behind it, to be replaced by a new train crew building of 4 and 6 stories, as indicated here, with ground floor meeting space for train crew, and also a small element of commercial floor space as well, and then that widening of Bollo Lane that I referred to previously. These are images. This is one looking north towards Acton Station. This is one looking from the station down Bollo Lane, and then some floor plans of it to give an indication of the field. So this is the commercial space that's provided behind Acton Town Station, which in a sense will wrap around the corner from the station building and have some contiguity with it. The train crew accommodation, which then sits over the top, and here's the space here, meeting rooms, etc., etc., and then on the roof some staff sitting out space. Again, that is not counted against any of the calculations of open space within the scheme, because it's essentially for staff. And then this is a flank elevation, which is straightforward. Here's the railway station and the new building behind it, Bollo Lane, and then flats in Gunnersbury Court behind. So this is plot 3A. Apologies for the wonky picture, but it was that, or you saw the thing at a rather strange angle. But I thought it was important to get this image to you so that you can see the relationship of the new building on plot 3A, and in particular its relationship to 100 Bollo Lane and to the Chiswick Business Park behind. So in essence, this is a 25-storey building, contains 195 build-to-rent flats, of which 50% are affordable. And then on the lower floors here, 542 square metres of business floor space. And then these parking spaces here, in fact, are overall spaces for the scheme, because they were provided in later parts. So there's no, these cycle spaces are part of the scheme. These 6 blue badge spaces here are situated behind the development, and this gives you a breakdown. As part of this development as well, there's this new plaza with a relocated bus stop here, so that will actually provide a significant improvement in pedestrian safety and in resting space while residents wait, or walkers or cyclists wait to cross the level crossing which passes across here. This is another image of the scheme. This is the business space at ground and first floor level, with the tower rising above it, context with 100 Bollo Lane, and then just some key measurements for your note, which actually appear in the report itself, showing the separation distance between 100 Bollo Lane on this side here, and some breakdown essentially of the ground floor uses within the residential and this new plaza space that's created in a bus lay-by, so that provides a much safer and more commodious resting place for people waiting to cross. Then these are illustrative elevations, because the appearance of the outline application phases in 2B to 2F is reserved. So this is just a feel of the buildings in terms of their design. The heights are as they're indicated in the parameters plan. So this is looking north. This is around Bollo Lane, and then this is one of the other units. And then looking at some of the constraints within the area, there are, as you can see, a number of heritage assets. I've referred to it already. Acton Town Station is a statutory listed building. Frank Pick House is locally listed, and there are a number of conservation areas. The borough boundary with Hounslow is here, so we have a number of conservation areas that are either in Hounslow or adjacent. I've indicated them all here. These notes in italics here are the conclusions that Historic England have raised in relation to the likely impact of the development upon these areas. The key component in relation to long-range views being the 25-storey tower. And it's important to pick up that in relation to Mill Hill Park and Acton Green conservation areas, no significant impacts were identified. And then there are a range of public benefits which I've set out in the report, just reproduced here. I won't go into them all because they're all, you will have seen them all in terms of the delivery of affordable housing and market housing, sustainable development, supporting and improving local business, additional training, significant improvements to public realm and the environment response making, and then the significant improvements to pedestrian and highway safety in terms of the new footways, cycleways and crossings. And this is a summary of the objections and representations received so far. I won't read through them all because you will have read them for yourself in the report. And then in the briefing note, there are some additional representations which I'll just outline. So we've had a further 3 online comments on the application. They were all objections, and I've summarised the new ones that have arisen with regard to referring to the development on Stanley Road, changes to the skyline, wind tunnel effect, and loss of views, and then representation that came in today from 102 Bollo Lane residents. Now, that was accompanied by photographs, and I'm not entirely certain of the address of those residents. From the photographs, it appeared that they are residents of the 100 Bollo Lane development, because they appear to be views looking down from it, and I stand to be corrected by that. No doubt, I'm happy to be corrected. And then a petition has been signed, which is referred to in the briefing note, and I've summarised here. Councillor Gary Malcolm has also responded individually himself and has sent an email round. I just would clarify this point here with regard to the carbon offset being £300 a tonne. This is a prospective proposal for carbon neutral developments. It's not the policy of the council. Current policy of the council is to request £95 a tonne, and that is what the applicant has signed up to in this context, in this application. And then a representation from Councillor Joanna Biddulph, who is a Hounslow councillor, who has made representations today. They are in the briefing note, but as you can see, she has, while she welcomes the redevelopment of the site, she considers it to be too tall and having a detrimental effect on Gunnersbury Park Conservation Area, Gunnersbury Court. She mentions no council engagement with Turnham Green residents. Now, I just would clarify for members' benefit, and you will see within the committee report, there is a plan which shows the area of the public consultation that was undertaken, which the council also used for the site notifications, and that extended deeply into the Hounslow area. So the site notice notification, note, it's page 36 of the agenda report. It shows that that there was extensive consultation by way of site notification into that area, and I can also say that I received considerable number of emails from residents within that area. So I'm confident that there was the application got before local people. And then updating you on representations from Kew Gardens World Heritage Site. They had received information of an additional view that they'd requested. They noted that it increased the cumulative impact on views of the orangery within the botanical gardens, but did not express an express objection. And then within the report, there is some update on the breakdown of open space and then amendments to the wording of conditions. And so the summary and conclusions, Chair. So we have 852 new homes in a mix of 1, 2 and 3 bed dwellings, 50% of which will be affordable housing in a range of tenures, London affordable rent, discount market rent, shared ownership and open market rent, and London living rent, as I say here. Significant new light industrial typologies on the LSIS, which are fully supported by the GLA as well. Environmental improvements and significant placemaking benefits of the scheme, in particular with the new public realm to Bollo Lane and the publicly accessible open spaces within the scheme. and then balancing those matters with the heritage impacts and the acknowledged less than substantial harm to heritage assets. It's considered the substantial public benefits outweigh that. There are a range of Section 106 contributions, Chair, which are listed in the recommendation, which is to grant with conditions subject to stage 2 referral and referral to the and completion of the legal agreement, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Obviously, that was perhaps a fuller and longer presentation than we would normally have, but the development itself is, one might say, fuller and longer in its ways than most proposals that come before us. So I think it's worth the committee's time to get that perspective. So moving on to our speakers on this application. So we've heard the proposal attracted interest across ward boundaries and even across borough boundaries. But we're going to hear from Councillor Josh Blacker, Councillor for South Acton Ward, in which the proposal sits first. So Josh, you'll have 5 minutes. So I'll just let so Misha will set up the clock for your 5 minutes. I promised I'd give a warning when I was about to say. So if you could begin when you're ready to start, Josh.
Thanks, Chair. Hopefully you can see
and
hear me.
I certainly can. Okay.
Thanks. I should add for transparency's sake that I do hold a membership of Kew Gardens, but as you say, it is the ward councillor I speak this evening, and obviously there's no pecuniary interest or any other interest there. A lot of residents have been in touch about this application. I'm sure you've seen their objections and read them, and I know many of them are watching this evening. I should apologise to those of them that, given I've only got 5 minutes, I can't cover all the points they've raised, but I will do my best. I do want to get some preliminary positive thoughts out of the way. I do think we should commend TfL and their partners for making sure that this was a very well publicised proposal. In contrast, I think, to some of the more under the radar applications we get. And, you know, I think committees should note that very positive engagement, but also make clear that that's probably the minimum that we should expect from developers, particularly on an application of this size. I do accept, as I think most of those objecting to elements of the scheme do, that, you know, the principle of developing this collection of sites. You know, it's undeniable that Bollo Lane will be improved. You know, it's the site of fly tips and abandoned vehicles and so on. And the natural surveillance brought in by residential development will help police that activity. And I think, as you know, has been noted, it will become a more pleasant corridor to travel up and down, accessibility will improve, and so on. The committee will probably also be minded that the economics of the development are very urgent for our city. We know that TfL is under enormous strain and developing revenue streams to make up for a frankly bizarre decision by central government to leave London as the only major world city with no subsidy for its public transport system is vital. So, you know, the principle of development here is acceptable, and the right development will unlock benefits for existing and future residents alike. But it is, you know, that key phrase, the right development, that I would ask the committee to focus on this evening. The committee often hears accusations of overdevelopment, but I would stress on this occasion that this corner of South Acton, not the ward as a whole, but the area of Acton Gardens alone, has at times been responsible for 1/4 of all new units being delivered in the entire borough. Okay, we've expanded our primary schools, we've built 2 new ones, we've got a whole new high school on the way to cope with what we already knew was coming. These proposed units add significantly to that pressure. On top of, you know, there's an additional developing proposals for the way at the top end of Bollo Lane as well. We've got 850 new units proposed in a ward of 10,000 residents. That's going to translate to at least a 10% uplift in the population in a single sweep. The committee needs to satisfy itself, and I mean interrogate properly, that the impact of these additional units is not going to overwhelm local amenities. The Piccadilly line upgrade, which would have unlocked capacity up at Acton Town, has been paused. There's going to be no relief for what at normal times is existing congestion at the station. And I know residents have asked for a second entrance on Bollo Lane, and there isn't any. Look, we've invested in new schools for the developments we've planned. We've invested in new parks for the development we've planned. We've got, you know, a new dentist on the estate for the developments we've planned. That I'm sure committee members will want to pick up that thread and make sure the application meets the needs of residents. But of course, the one aspect of this development that is most troubling is plot 3A. It's slightly disappointing you're looking at a hybrid application for both full permission and the outline permission, because it muddies the water somewhat. Look, a 25-storey block is at least 25% higher than anything else approved in Acton Gardens. Committee will remember that it rejected a smaller tower in West Ealing in an equally inappropriate location, and that consistency in decision-making is necessary for the fair judgment of applications that come before us. We have concentrated, as a committee, as a borough, tall towers in specific locations. North Acton is one. This is South Acton, where we have a sensitively planned, award-winning regeneration project that is set to be dwarfed by this development. You will note that Historic England on page 49 maintains objection to the harm, so committee should understand that cumulatively harms on heritage assets are of concern. You might be minded to outweigh the clear inappropriateness of that block with its 50% affordable offer, but dig into that offer, and the mix of housing it offers is not compliant with our policies, offering a 40-60 ratio of generally affordable to intermediate products instead of the other way around. A DMR product, a discount market rent product, aimed at those with a household income of up to £90,000 is clearly not going to help the 12,000 we have on the waiting lists. Only 15% or 15.5% on a habitable room basis of that block will be accessible at London living rent, not even London affordable rent. That's clearly not a generally affordable offer sufficient to outweigh the significant impact of a block that size, and in fact is worse than the overall application, which is at 18 or 19 combined LAR and LLR, so the affordable and the living rent. So there are two tests for you as a committee this evening. What is the impact of the increased population outside of the detailed Acton Gardens master planning exercise on local amenities, and can they cope with the added strain? And can you satisfy yourselves that the genuinely affordable offer is sufficiently good that it can outweigh the very real harms and clear policy violations of a block of 25 stories? The residents I represent are very well used to development, but it has been development that is right for the location, beneficial to the area, and sensitively planned. That's what you need to satisfy yourselves tonight if you're going to approve this application. And I don't think on plot 3A that the application meets those tests. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think you came in. I couldn't see your clock, but I think you came in just in time. Well crafted from a timing standpoint, among all the other things. So next we'll hear from objector on behalf of residents, which is Mr. Craig Woodrow. Are you still with us, Craig?
I am indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll just pause till Misha lets me know that we're good to go with the stopwatch. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But I think you've been briefed on that. And there is a slightly alarming stopwatch, but it's better for you to know than not know. So, so when you're ready,
thank you. Okay, so yes, I'm sort of speaking on behalf of the residents in the area. We agree with a lot of what Councillor Josh Blacker has said. I mean, we find that the plan is excessive, overbearing, and represents an overdevelopment of the site along Bollo Lane. The 25 and 18-storey block really will lead to a loss of residential privacy and overlooking of the residents. It really will be another eyesore, I mean, regardless of how slim you say it will be. As it is, 100 Bollo Lane is already an overbearing building, and it overlooks all of the surrounding residential houses. On Ivy Crescents, our gardens are overlooked by the tower, and we already suffer a loss of light. A 25-storey building would just cause even more loss of light and privacy, and we really are against the size of that building. For 100 Bollo Lane, the design will cause a loss of light, meaning that 87% of the rooms facing the proposed development are not compliant with BRE guidance. The building will also cause an overshadowing effect. Now, this will sort of impede the effectiveness of the solar panel, which of course provide clean energy to the building. They feel also that the tower is too close to 100 Bollo Lane. That can create wind tunnel effects impacting on the airflow and the pollution and noise of the area. It's a very similar problem that happened at Gunnersbury Station, and if anyone actually just kind of goes through that station, it is very much a wind tunnel. We don't feel that the plan considers the highway safety adequately for access to the Acton works. heavy goods vehicles utilising Acton works have frequently committed criminal offences under the Highway Code by incurring on the pavement there. I believe photos of that have already been sent to the committee for viewing. Another issue that we have is that currently Acton Gardens developed by L&Q is only half full. And despite this, they continue to do their build out. So we feel that, are we going to be left with empty buildings of a scale that nobody wanted in the first place? A year ago, Norwich Council won the Sterling Architecture Prize for streets of homes hailed as high quality architecture in its most environmentally and social conscious form. And I guess we feel that if they can do it, then surely the council can do that too. It's not that we oppose the building of the site as well. We do oppose the building of the site as a stand, but it's not that we oppose the improvement of the area. We want the area to be improved. It is a corridor that isn't very pleasant at the moment. But really, we request that designs be reconsidered to be more socially conscious and taking into account the residents' concerns, especially the size of the buildings. That is one of our biggest issues. And at the end of the day, you have to remember that we're the ones that have to live with the consequences of your decisions. Thank you.
And again, impeccable timing. Thank you very much, Craig. And finally, we'll get of the applicant. I think Mr. Brendan Hodges of TfL. Brendan, are you still there?
Thank you, Chair. I'm here. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can indeed. And you also have 3 minutes, which you've seen how the stopwatch works. So again, in your own time, when you're ready to start, please commence.
Thank you. I'm the planning manager at TfL responsible for delivering high quality housing led projects. We've identified this underused but important section of Bollo Lane as a transformative opportunity to help the borough meet its housing and employment needs. Our highly sustainable proposal accords with planning policies at all levels and will rejuvenate the area through the delivery of new homes and employment within a beautiful landscape setting. We acknowledge a high level of public interest in the scheme, and this partly results from our very extensive community consultation. We've contacted over 40,000 local residents and businesses. While there's clear support for making good use of this site for housing and employment, there are concerns about the height of Building 3A. As your officer's report explains, the scheme needs to achieve a certain quantum of development to enable the early delivery of such a high level of affordable housing, as well as significant landscaping and public realm improvements. As required by planning policies, we've taken a design-led approach to establish the principles of height, massing, open space provision, and architectural language to complement the site's wider context. This has been endorsed by your independent design review panel, the Mayor's design advocates, the GLA, and your officers. The height and massing has also been the subject of rigorous testing and technical assessment. The proposed scheme has evolved, taking account of residents' natural light, local wind conditions, important viewpoints, and local heritage. As is the case for all major development schemes near heritage assets, there will be some impact. In planning jargon, in this case, it's less than substantial, effectively meaning a minor impact that must be balanced against the significant public benefits of the development. And the proposal brings many benefits for the borough and local communities. We'll create a beautiful new place on a currently underused and unattractive site. It'll be opened up to the community and integrated with Acton Gardens and the wider context. Generous and attractive open spaces and landscaping are at the heart of the proposals, including a new green pedestrian-focused route along the length of the site. It'll be green in other ways too. We're planting 250 new trees. It'll be highly energy efficient and utilise green energy, and healthy active travel will be encouraged, not cars. Importantly, it's going to deliver 852 new homes, meeting local needs and helping achieve Ealing's housing target. 50% of these new homes are affordable, a far higher proportion than most housing schemes achieve. The mix is supported by your housing officers and will meet the needs of low and middle income households. And we provide new spaces for local businesses to thrive and prosper, along with new shops, cafes, and other local enterprises. This is a fantastic scheme which TfL is rightly proud of. It'll continue our legacy of design excellence and deliver major benefits for the borough and local communities. We intend to develop it as a joint venture, which means we'll remain as long-term owners and managers committed to the success and quality of these new homes and the environment. I very much hope that we can count on committee's support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pretty much bang on. Thank you. So we've now heard from Ward Councillor, Objector and Applicant. So what happens now is that I will take questions from the committee to principally to the officer or whoever's in a position to answer them. And then after we've had questions, the committee will move on to debate the merits of the scheme. So for my purpose, I see Councillor Dabrowska's put, she wants to ask a question in the chat, but it perhaps make my life easier if people use the raise hand function to indicate.
You haven't got the raised hand function.
Well, you should have a raised hand function under your participants button, which is where you would find it. But I saw I've clocked it out. I can see Mr. Woodrow has his hand up.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to try and get a better understanding of why the building, especially to where it has to be so large, and doesn't that stop you?
It's not really you don't really have a role from this point on in the discussion, but I'm sure in the context of the questions that members ask and the discussion that we have, I'm sure a lot of the things that are going through your head are going through the minds of members.
Yeah, especially as we are the residents that will live with this at long term.
But of course, but that's true, Mr. Woodrow, of every application that we deal with. So, you know, while we appreciate that it's extraordinary, every application's different and important, but in terms of process, from this point on, you know, you've had your say, and I now move on to the members to discuss. But thank you very much for your participation. So I'm going to take the questions in the order that I initially saw them. So I've got Councillor Dabrowska, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. It's good to have quite a wide and quite detailed, actually, explanation of the application. It should be done for other ones. However, there are a few things missing. I was curious to wait to see if there's an elevation or a view from the south, i.e. south of 100 Bollo Lane, i.e. south of Pocket Living, because effectively that's the nearest existing neighbour, as in the residential neighbour, and all we saw was only a bit of the 100 Bollo Lane building, but not from their view. So if the officer has a elevation and a vista from the south, how it impacts the two-storey terrace houses and how it blocks the daylight of Pocket Living residents who have north-facing windows. I'd also like to have some clarification on the legal side. The officer mentioned that the northern part of the strip, so to speak, is on the Hounslow side. So I'd just like some legal clarification. Why are we determining a development, an application on not our land, as in not in our boundary land? So for that, looking at also the various tables for the housing mix with tenures, it's a shame that amongst the numerous tables, what's missing is telling me how many of the 1, 2 or 3 bedroom are actually affordable. Because if it basically means that only 1 bedroom apartments are affordable, then I would be pretty damn peeved off that no large family units are available under for affordable in the affordable housing sort of category. And also I'd like to mention one more thing. The officer mentioned there will be a pedestrianised crossing. Unless I missed something in the presentation, because I might have cut out, but is it just a zebra crossing? because I'm really concerned. I know the area quite well because I was born literally just down the road, so I was brought up, so I know it. That road, Bollo Lane, even though the speed is 20 miles an hour in the borough, that road probably could, you know, it is a speedway. People race, and I'm a bit worried if it was only zebra crossing. With such a wide road, it's very, very dangerous, and actually the transport has to be, I think, revisited for the safety of pedestrians crossing that road. Thank you.
Okay, well, normally I would take a few questions, take a few members and wrap them together, but you've effectively fulfilled that role on your own, Joanna. So I'll ask Greg to pick up. I'll ask Greg to pick up on that range of questions that you asked.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
Thank you. Okay. Just going through the points one after the other. I regret I do not have a photograph or an image of a view from, shall I say, the other side of the Pocket Living Bollo Lane development, looking north along Bollo Lane. So I'm not able to show you what it might look from that direction. So I can't assist you with that. I'm afraid.
That's a shame.
And I'm sorry about that too, actually, Councillor. I think probably on reflection, it might have been quite helpful in coming out, and I think perhaps it's something I could look at in the future. But regrettably, on this occasion, I don't have that. Well, I do have the imagery that's in the application that I showed you. Secondly, with regard to the jurisdiction of the application site, and just bear with me a second, I'm making a lot of noise because I'm just having a look here to see where the borough boundary is. And I think it might just be the way in which I said it. The boundary between this council and Hounslow, in fact, is on the west side of the railway line. So if you imagine the site is due north-south, the western boundary is the railway line, but the boundary with Hounslow is in fact on the other side of the railway line. So in a sense, all of that section of railway that runs parallel to the site is within Ealing.
So the tube tracks are in Ealing, okay? Because you mentioned the top bit, the industrial bit at top is in Hounslow land. You actually said that. Sorry,
no, yeah, it may just been about the way I said it, but it's essentially the whole of the site is in Ealing Borough. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then you asked a question about the dwelling mix. So if you have page 23 of your report.
I'm looking here at 23. Okay.
There are some tables at the top of that page, which I'm hoping will give you the information you're looking for.
No, it doesn't.
Well, I think what Councillor Dubravka was looking for was each
size by
the
tenure.
ones, twos, yeah, the 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. Does it indicate how many of each of those fall within each of the affordability or
the tenure? Okay, yeah,
tenure categories.
Okay, if you just bear with me.
No,
hang on. I'm just having a look just to make sure.
This information should be basic in applications. I'm sorry, but it should be.
So I don't want. We don't need necessarily. Let's give the officer a chance to respond, Joanna.
No, because I always ask this. I ask this every time a similar thing pops up.
Sorry, I've not gone mute. I am looking. Right. I think if you should, well, let's try this one. Page 36. Top of the page.
Gosh, the print is awful. Gosh.
Oh, no, I know, but I've enlarged mine to 100%, and it's still legible, but does that help you?
Yep, that does do it.
Yes, thank
that
you.
is where it's.
Okay, apologies for the quality, councillor. I've there's been a problem with it all being done in PDF, and I had to do that with some plans, but I will check tables in the future as well to make sure that they're all legible. And then I think your last question, councillor, concerns the crossings, the pedestrian crossings that
Safety,
are proposed.
yeah.
Yeah, so they are zebra crossings, yeah, not pelican crossings. But you are aware, of course, that there are also speed tables proposed within the scheme.
Yes.
Councillor, and they were on the presentation. If can I share this again? If I go back, if I share the presentation with you for a minute, and then you can see I can point you to the place where they are. Can you see the presentation?
Yep.
Yes.
You can. Good. Okay, fine. It's all right. I'm just going down to here. So this page here shows you. So there are zebra crossings, and then there is. So if I'd start from the bottom right, you've got a raised table at the point where the level crossing is.
Yep.
So that gives access across there, and then moving gradually north. Then there is a new speed table at the staggered junction between Stanhope Way. I forget the name of that road. I'm sure you know it better than me, but anyway, you can see where it is.
That's the one with the access to the business park, is it?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That is the one, and then moving further north, there's a further zebra crossing at the junction with Roslin Road. But they are, I emphasise, they're zebra crossings. They're not pelican control.
So basically,
like that, which I think what you're thinking about, is it?
So for the stretch, so for the stretch between the north and the south, there is nothing literally limiting the speed.
There
Between
are
the station and the.
There's no chicanes or anything like that. Obviously, the speed tables are of themselves speed restraints in terms of the fact that vehicles actually have to slow to mount on. But
okay, thank you very much.
Those are to the south. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
There's also a law.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to try taking a group of three. So I've got Ray Wall, then Miriam Rice, and John Ball.
Is it Steve? Is it me now?
Yes, it's you, Ray.
Thank you. Just zebra crossing, going back to that. I mean, there is the law that stops people speeding as well. So down that road, like any other road, and I'm putting a zebra crossing, it should be a bonus, not a safety problem. What, people crossing a road? Right. Okay.
Well, no side conversations, please.
Right, two questions, please. One is my usual question, which is pepper potting, and is this happening in this development? And secondly, I think the big question is around what Councillor Backer mentioned, which is about the share of affordable housing, how it's worked out, and could we have some better explanation of that? It's a bit bitty in the report, if I must say. So this 40-60 split and how it's the opposite way around to our normal policy, and could we understand why it's like that? I think it's about rental levels and rental in perpetuity, etc., etc. But it is a departure from our normal. So could we just have some wider explanation on that, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Miriam?
Yes, I'm just a bit concerned about the 100 Bollo Lane. There doesn't seem to be an awful lot of information about the kind of the overlooking and the effects of light upon the residents in 100 Bollo Lane, because it's a pocket living property. I mean, I obviously don't have any physical experience of actually being within the properties, but I know that pocket living properties are very small, and I can imagine that if there is a lack of daylight coming through, that is actually going to really badly be badly detrimental towards the living standards of the people there. So we'll just like maybe some kind of clarification as to what effect there would be there, please. Thank you.
Thank you. And John Ball to round off this little clutch of questions.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got two questions. So the first is, we heard about the issue with the discrepancy between the carbon offset amount, which is in this application in the section 106 for this application at £95 a tonne, and the carbon offset that was agreed by Cabinet last night as part of the climate change strategy, which is £300 a tonne. It's obviously very, very much larger. And I understand that Councillor Jasbir Anand at Cabinet suggested that a review could be made of that part of the section 106. So just like to ask the legal officer whether that would be possible for us to add by condition now that there is a new policy of the council which doesn't match what's in here. And the second point is about Frank Pick House, second question, sorry. So, I mean, I understand that that will be demolished as part of the scheme, and there is reference to it on page 86 of 252. But what it says there is that it quotes NPPF guidance, paragraph 196, that local planning authorities should not permit the loss of the whole or part of a heritage asset without taking all reasonable steps to ensure the new development will proceed after the loss has occurred. Is that compatible with this application, where, as I understand it, Frank Pick House is in the section which is an outline application? So we would be having an outline application which would involve demolishing a locally listed building, and we wouldn't know at what point the reserve matters for that would be dealt with. And I mean, obviously, I've seen the building, and I know it's not necessarily beautiful in the eyes of all, but it is a locally listed building, so it has been identified as being a significant asset. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Greg, if you can pick up on those from Ray, Miriam, and John, please.
Yes, Chair. If I start off with the pepper potting, can I confirm that each block has a mixture of tenures within it? Block 3A, for example, I think has the first. I think it's 11 floors are affordable, and the upper floors above that are market. But I think, given that they're all in exactly the same building, the same means of access, that then I think we would regard that as an appropriate degree of pepper potting, and indeed, if anything, it gives the affordable housing closer accessibility to amenity space and play areas, which tends often to be preferred for the market housing. With regard to the affordable housing split, I'm just looking that up in the report. So I'll just turn up the relevant part of the report where that's considered, which is essentially around page 52, 53 of the report, which deals with the affordable housing mix. And of course, the committee will be aware this is an entirely a build to rent scheme, both for the affordable and for the market housing, and the applicants have adduced a mix for the full application unit, plot 3A, which comprises LLR and DMR units. I hope you're all comfortable with me using acronyms. If you don't, I'll use the longhand version. Perhaps I'll say London Living Rent just for the benefit of the people listening as well, perhaps because they may not know this term. No. So we have a mix of London Living Rent and discount market rent in plot 3A. And then for the outline elements of the scheme, we have a mix of London affordable rent, London living rent, and discount market rent. And then you have the market rent units as well. And yes, it is. I will accept that it is not necessarily four square with our policy objectives in terms of percentage breakdown. But what I will say, Chair, is that the offer and the mix was carefully considered by our housing supply team, as I indicate in the report. And in fact, they welcome the offer and the 10-year mix within the scheme. I'm just reading the words they put there, subject to the inclusion of relevant criteria in perpetuity, including rent caps which obviously are proposals within the recommendation before you to have those limitations. So although the mix is not necessarily four square with our normal expectation, on this particular scheme, our housing supplies team considers both the offer and the mix of that offer to be well, indeed, they go so far as to welcome it. So that deals with Councillor Wall's questions.
I'm not sure it does, but
I'm happy. Yes, go on.
Well, yeah, I've read that in the report. What I'm trying to get at is what is the benefits of departure from our norm? What is it that this? I'm presuming it's the lower rent, etc. But could you just spell that out, please? That's what I'm trying to get to.
Sorry, I understand now better what your question was. Yes, I mean the essence of our policy, of course, is the policy of general application, is what we seek generally across the borough. But these percentages always need to flex according to which parts of the borough they're situated in, because in different wards there are different priorities in terms of property needs, and as we might do, say, in Central Ealing versus Southall, for example, and so in this case in Acton. And it's the nature of the offer is build to rent units and the market conditions that have driven this mix of units and this percentage of offer. It was put forward by the applicants, as I say, and at the risk of repeating myself, our housing market team consider it to be an appropriate and supportable offer in this location and in the means offered.
Okay, moving on to Councillor Rice's question about 100 Bollo Lane.
Councillor Rice, yes. So Councillor Rice asked about impacts on neighbouring properties, in particular on 100 Bollo Lane, which I dealt with at pages, I think it's 66 of my 66 and 67 of my report. So in terms of overlooking and privacy, as I had noted, the separation distance between the two blocks is in excess of our normal standards. We have a range of 18 to 21 metres separation in this case, because of the distance is actually between 24.9 and 27.7 metres, because the building is slightly cranked at an angle. So that is far in excess of the normal separation distance. Well, in excess of the normal separation distances we would expect as a minimum, and it is considered to be an appropriate separation distance in a location such as this. And then with regard to sunlight, daylight, that is also addressed at the end of that page and moving on to the page below. And I think it's important to bear in mind, Chair, that BRE guidelines are not a standard that has to be achieved in town planning terms with regard to the acceptability of development. They're a guide, they're not mandatory. They're a guide and an instrument that's used in order to assess impacts. And the impacts have been assessed by the applicants, daylight, sunlight, technical consultants, and taking into account the location of the site within this urban context, and we shouldn't lose sight of that fact. We are within an urban context. Then the impacts are considered to fall within the normal ranges for this type of location. And 100 Bollo Lane enjoys an unusual openness and advantage at the moment, but it can't be expected to do that. Now, I'm not suggesting in any way, shape, or form that they should be punished. Far from it, Chair. What I'm doing is saying that in managing and assessing the impact between the two, it is that impact as they stand together now and how they would stand in the future that has to be assessed, and that difference is not considered to be so significant as to result in a material, dare I say, a level of harm that we would consider to be unacceptable and attracting a reason for refusal.
So, I mean, daylight and sunlight are different in this context, aren't they? In sunlight terms, Bollo Lane's actually to the south of the largest block. So Bollo Lane, in fact, 100 Bollo Lane would cast the shadow rather than have shadow cast upon it. But in terms of daylight, there could be an impact, which is where presumably you're referring to the minimum guidelines there.
Yeah,
okay.
yes. Yes, Chair, I am. That's what I'm saying. And then
Councillor Ball's asking about the impact of the change of policy on carbon offset.
Yes, Chair. Thank you for that. And I did consult with colleagues on that particular point. And the position is that, and my advice is that the cabinet report that considered these changes was careful and not to actually suggest that the current £95 standard should change. The council's current position, as it is being expressed to all developers, is that they should meet our current rate, which is £95 a tonne, which is an appropriate starting point for carbon offset, but that the council would, over time, move to a requirement for £300 a tonne as part of a zero carbon development proposals. But we cannot exert a requirement at this precise time for £300 a tonne, because this is not the policy of the council. The policy of the council is £95 a tonne.
Well, can I just come back on that? I mean, the policy of the council is £300 a tonne, because that's what was agreed yesterday, isn't it?
Yep. Well, I think the officer's answered the question, John, insofar as he understands it. So, you know,
if I've been given by colleagues, Chair. So, I mean, if it was the position, then we would say that is the position. There's nothing, you know, there's nothing in it for us. But we need to bear in mind that this is a carbon zero offset that will be required, and that's something we'll be looking in the future for development. It becomes council policy once we put it into an SPD, etc.
Well, I'll just look to see.
Could come in here, perhaps.
Yes.
Just to say, it's Jackie. Sorry. Just to say, follow on from what Greg was saying, is that there is a difference between a general council policy and a planning policy, and that's where the time lag may well come in. That this scheme needs to be assessed against current planning policy, and as Greg said, it may well move towards a time when that planning policy changes. But as of at the moment, that it's as reflected in the controls just suggested.
Thank you. I should say, when I said that Greg had answered the question as far as he understood it, I wasn't trying to suggest he didn't understand it, only that there was no value in repeatedly asking him the same question to get the same answer. That's what I meant. So apologies if it came across differently, Greg.
No offence taken, Chair. Far from it. I didn't want Councillor to think that I was not au fait with the position. That was all. So that's fine. I've got Councillor Bull's other question that I need to look at, which is Frank Pick House, which is a locally listed building, and as Councillor Bull says, it is a requirement of the council to consider whether it's desirable in the interest of the fact that it's very much a non-statutory locally listed building, whether it's desirable to retain it in advance of any scheme. Now, the policy applies generally to locally listed buildings as applies to statutory listed buildings, which is that you should not give permission for the demolition of a heritage asset, whether it be statutory or non-statutory, without a scheme. And we have a scheme, and the advantage, dare I say, or the benefit or the justification for the removal of Frank Pick House is that it would facilitate the comprehensive development of the site, even though that lies within the outline application proposal. So the timing of that demolition could be at any time, but ultimately the building would have to be demolished in order to facilitate the development, and there is no scope to retain it within the scheme, simply because it meets part of the operational requirements of TfL for the maintenance of plant and equipment, in particular escalators, and TfL no longer require the building for that purpose. And without wishing to be too dismissive or sniffy about the building, its heritage asset lies probably more in the name Frank Pick House than there is actually in the building itself, because obviously it's the association with Frank Pick, the architect who designed all of these railway station buildings, including Acton Town Railway Station, and that the building is not considered to be of such significance as to justify its retention within the scheme. And I do say within the body of the report that was assessed by TfL themselves, and it wasn't found to be in the best interest of a comprehensive development and all the other advantages the scheme brings to retain it. I hope that will do, Councillor Bull.
Okay, Thank you. I've got 3 more councillors with questions. In the order I'll take them is Councillor Kumar, Councillor Anand, and Councillor Mahmood. So Councillor Kumar.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, whilst regeneration of an area is desirable, I think my concern here is the height and density of the large, the southern tower block, and the issue about overlooking has not actually been addressed. And I say this because I always have a stance with my developers who approach me in developments in my area is to consult fully, properly with the residents, take their views on board, because they're the ones who are living in that area. They're the ones who are going to be affected. And
Councillor Kumar, is this a question to the officer, or we'll have the opportunity to give opinion later, but have you got a simple question that you can ask Greg on this basis about overlooking?
Yes, I mean, I mean, in the absence of any slide or any information on the overlooking, I mean, it's very difficult to determine what it actually would mean, because we haven't made a site visit either due to the circumstances. But I do think I'd like to know more about, how much consideration was given to the height and density, and why, just plonking something right at that height, was thought desirable, because that is loss of privacy as well. I mean, it matters to people. It will affect them in every way. So, I mean, has that not been considered? And I would have been happier also to see a higher private market rent units be reduced, and happier to see more affordable. It's always the percentage of the private market rental that goes up. The other thing is the car parking, because you're giving car parking, from what I understood, and correct me if I'm wrong, is for businesses. And to me, it's all, industrial, commercial. It doesn't give me a feeling of, that particular 3A block being in the vicinity of, a family living environment. It just doesn't gel. So giving car parking space to businesses and then asking people to use the surrounding CPZs, which are already under strain, I think is not a bright idea. So I'd like to know more on the parking as well, and also on the consideration given about.
I think we very specifically not telling them to use the local CPZs. That's a sort of general part, but Greg will doubtless clarify that. Councillor Rand.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 2 questions. Firstly, I'll come to the more concerning one, which is on page 73. Can you hear me?
Yes.
On page 73, there's mention in the 3rd or 4th paragraph, height impact could be, and this is by the Historic England, height impact could be heavily mitigated by redistributing height to a lower blocks, but an increased impact to the Gunnersbury CA would have to be assessed against public benefits. My question here is, firstly, what changes were done following this comment? Because it says here the applicant updated his viewpoints, but updating his viewpoints, was the design hasn't been altered, or has it been altered to affect that? Oh, and I reflect back to the presentation where we had the blue shading. Is that the blue shading? Is that representing the changes that would be taken by the applicant, that he's taken into account with this Historic England? And secondly, right on page 25, I just need clarification. What is meant by appearance to be reserved? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Mahmood.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. So the 2 question and 1 clarification, Chair, through you. One is just exactly Councillor Kumar said, in terms of parking, correct me if I'm wrong. So my understanding is that apart from a blue badge holder, there will be no parking for the normal residential unit. Question one. Question two is, I have heard about that. People's been, I think somebody's saying 40,000 residential and business contacts have been made. 40,000 or 4,000 contacts has been consulted. Third thing is, in terms of Section 106 money, could you remind me clearly how much Section 106 money we are getting to mitigate in terms of effect on education, schooling, or whatever categories we have decided? So I just wanted to get 3 clarification, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So running through that set of 3 then, Greg, we've got overlooking was the first from Councillor Kumar.
Yes, I'm going to put up the slide presentation again, just so that I can talk you through that, if I might, please. And you can tell me when you see it. Can you see the slide presentation?
Yes.
Okay, good. Trying to see if I can find. Hang on, this is the right slide, I think. So, Councillor Kumar was asking about overlooking, and as I pointed out in the report and in answer to Councillor Rice, the separation distances are there fundamentally to maintain an appropriate level of amenity, and in that amenity is also the issue of overlooking. And as I indicated, our normal standard is between 18 and 21 metres, and as you can see there, the separation distance between the 2 blocks is between 24.9 and 27.7. I should say that it's going to be at least 27.7, because if you look at the drawing where I've got the cursor sitting over that hatched area there, in fact is the roof of the building below, which is the business units, whereas the blue is actually the residential. So in fact, if you extrapolate that separation line, you're going to be looking at least 27.7 metres separation between that and the flank wall of 100 Bollo Lane. So that's a good 6 metres at least in excess of our normal requirements, and is a separation distance that as officers we would normally consider to be acceptable, especially bearing in mind the orientation between the 2 properties, and that likewise relates to that matter. With regard to height and density, I took it from Councillor Kumar that she was concerned that in around the same matter. I'm happy to take the question again if I misunderstood it.
Well, I think it just, well, I mean, what I picked from her was overlooking then the mix of affordable and commercial rent. So why it was at the level as it was.
I think that was
previously asked, but she just wanted to understand.
I see. Yes, I'm not sure that I can add anything to what I'd said previously, actually.
And the third bit was on the main commercial parking.
Yes, indeed, and I think that's a matter of clarification. So to be clear, this is a car-free development as it relates to residential uses, and the only parking for residences within the whole of the scheme is blue badge parking. There is a small component of business parking for the business uses, and that's really largely to be able to park their commercial vehicles on site. But with regard to CPZs, there is the standard clause within the proposed 106 agreement that there will be no resident parking permits offered to any resident of this development. The sustainable qualities of this site, its accessibility in terms of bus access, for at least there's a bus stop immediately outside plot 3A, accessibility to Acton Town Station, and improved pedestrian and cycle links between them really speak volumes about the fact that this is a positive alternative to a car user based development. So that's my response to that.
Councillor and
Yes.
was referring to the historic England issues.
Yes, he was. That's right. And I think looking at that, I think he referred to page 73. I think that's the right page of my report, when he said about whether I understand the point, however, which was that Historic England had said that in their view, some of an unquantifiable amount of the 25-storey on plot 3A could be redistributed elsewhere through the scheme. And as I sought to demonstrate in the presentation with regard to the design development, and I'll go back to this slide here with regard to how this was achieved. This was not something which the developer proposed themselves and then stuck with. It went through a long process of design review, pre-application design review, as I indicated, with the GLA, with Merrill Design Advocacy Design Review partner panels, and in consultation with GLA and Ealing Council officers, and was informed in terms of the scaling of development by the range of work that the applicant did. For example, the townscape and visual impact assessment, the heritage statement, and in their design and access statement, and also having regard to the criteria in intent to publish London Plan Policy D9. So the scheme went through a long period of iteration, and I dealt with that in the report. So the heights that are produced now are those which reflect a reasonable balance between those other views. And indeed, in fairness to Historic England, they did recognise that if some height was redistributed throughout the scheme, it would inevitably result in a greater impact on the setting of the Gunnersbury Park conservation area, and their view was that it was a matter for the council to decide on its merits as to whether they preferred to see a single tower or whether they preferred it to be distributed throughout the rest of the site. And the recommendation from your officers is that the tower option represents the better option, in the sense that it will contain any impacts to that part of the site where the wider impact will be at its least. Then there was a point from the councillor, I think, which also was regard to blue shading, and I suspect what he might have been referring to was this plan. If I'm wrong, then I'm happy to take the question. Right. Is that the plan, councillor?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Oh, okay, fine, right. That's one of the parameters plans, councillor, and what it does essentially is that because this is the outline application part of the scheme, it essentially sets design heights, maximum design heights to these blocks that are part of the design rationale on the slide I showed you just now with regard to the heights, so that the building heights should never exceed the green line, which is where I'm running the cursor at the moment, if you could see. Whereas dropping down below them could be done, but it would be at the expense of the scale of development overall, and certainly anything lower than that would generate a lesser development. So that isn't part of the design review. That is just one of the parameter plans on block height. I hope that's clear. And then with regard to the appearance being a reserved matter, Chair, as you know, there are a set number of reserved matters that would be imposed on any outline planning permission. In this particular case, the outline component of the site, which relates to lots 2B to 2F, the appearance of the scheme has been reserved. So in other words, whilst we have full design details for plots 1A and 3A, these are reserved, and they are for individual developers to come forward and propose their own schemes for the buildings. But in that context, there is a design code included within the application proposal, which and would be imposed on any grant of permission to use certain materials, to use certain building styles and elevational treatments that would effectively ensure the continuity and contiguity of the scheme overall. And these images that I'm just showing to you now are images that come from the design code and would indicate the sorts of building architectural typologies and styles, materials, etc., that would be expected to come forward in order to give some individuality to the scheme. So I hope that answers that question. And then Councillor Mahmood, questions. So in answer to Councillor Mahmood's question, yes, it is a blue badge parking scheme in the normal way. There is zero residential parking for any other persons, and as I've mentioned already, a small quantum of business parking for the business users to park their vehicles on site, and then there'd be the CPZ restriction. This 40,000 point, I didn't get a chance to check on it. So I'll answer I'm just going to do that now, but while I'm at it, on the third point, which was on section 106 contributions, let me just scroll back through the report, Chair, and then I'll try and get where Councillor Mahmood may have got. Could Councillor Mahmood tell me where he got the 40,000 from? I'm just looking at the community engagement, the headline numbers in there, because I don't recognise the 40,000. I'm sorry.
Well, perhaps we can move on from that.
Well, I can clarify that. It's Alex Jackson here.
Yeah.
The 40,000 reference came from Brendan Hodges in his address to the committee, which sets out, he did mention 40,000 as part of that consultation, which obviously includes the consultation that was undertaken by TfL in advance of the application and obviously during the application. So not our own council's statutory consultation, but hopefully that clarifies that point.
Okay, thanks, Alex.
Thank you, Alex.
And the last question that Councillor Mahmood had on page 4 of the report, Chair, we have the recommendation, and on that page we have the financial obligations, and for Councillor Mahmood's benefit, item M for Mahmood, if I might be so bold, education, £1.25 million, education contributions directed to Fielding Primary School and Elthorne Park High School, and other local education provision. I think that's it, Chair.
Okay, yep, thank you very much. I've got Councillor Martin has indicated now.
Thank you, Chair. Hope you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. I just wanted to ask the officer about the internal space dimensions for the flats. I couldn't find it in the reports. If it is there, could he point me in the right direction? Thanks.
Thank you. And can I just check, your hand, Ray, is still up? Is that a legacy hand, or have you been inspired for further queries?
Let me explain. I can't bring it down because every time I go to it, it comes with mute or unmute, and that goes in front of us. So
it's gone now. It's gone now. Anyway, so Councillor Martin, then question then about the internal space sizes, Greg.
Well, first of all, Councillor Martin, I confirm you won't have been able to find it in the report because I didn't refer to it, and the reason why I didn't refer to it is because all of the flats would be fully compliant with GLA standards, including the 10% for disability provision, which is in accordance with London Plan policy as well. So I can't give you individual dimensions, but what I can confirm is that they're all compliant, both market and affordable.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Well, I think I see no more questions, so we can move on now to debate. Perhaps if Councillors Kumar and Anand still have their hands up, so if that's not for the purposes of the debate, perhaps they could take them down. If it is for the purposes of the debate, then great. So those who would wish to speak in the discussion and debate, put the hands up, please. Councillor Summers, haven't heard from you to this point.
Thank you. Yes, this is one of the developments which I think is probably the first one during the sort of lockdown or the COVID period that it's, would have been really nice to have had a site visit. It's right down the other end of the borough from where I am, and although I'm aware of Acton Town Station and I know Bollo Lane, it really would have been good to sort of get a feel of it. Obviously, we've got the slides, but the views would have been, great deal of difference. For example, I'm having difficulty seeing how it's going to be so oppressive for the residents who've complained about being overlooked, etc. I mean, for me, it looks like a massive improvement on what the site is currently. I take Councillor Blacker's point that it, you know, he sees it as sort of overdevelopment and that it's going to put stresses on the, you know, schools and doctors' surgeries, etc. I mean, I'm not sure if that's strictly planning grounds to turn it down. I personally am currently minded to approve it. Especially, I wanted to see the slide again from Acton Town Station because it certainly seems a big improvement at that end. And I take the point that, you know, now we're going to have a proper pavement all the way down that side of the road. Yeah, that's the way I'm looking at it at the moment.
Thanks, Chris. Well, perhaps Greg could find that slide in the background, and at some point before we finish, if he can just show that view again. I've got. Sorry, Greg. Yeah, if you.
Sorry, obviously I'm just putting it up.
Okay.
Is that the one you were asked after, Chair?
Well, I think probably it was more the view down, the future view all the way down. But I don't know, is that slide you were after?
The bottom right-hand corner of that one.
Yeah.
The one in the bottom right-hand corner, yeah. I can enlarge that if you want. So can you see that? Yeah. Sorry, is that helpful?
Yes.
Anyway, we'll have to move on. So, Councillor Dabrowska.
Thank you. Hang on 1 second. Thank you. Knowing the area for over 40 years, that area is begging for any development, but not development at any cost.
Just that your sound has gone rather.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but it's a bit distorted. I don't know if that's just me.
Can you hear me?
That's a bit clearer. Yeah.
It could be the paperwork on the laptop. Sorry.
That might do it.
Yeah. Okay. Having known the area for over 40 years, I know the area has always been run down, especially on that side, because it's been an industrial works. There have been a lot of flow tipping, and just uncared for and loved in any form of greenery. And it's crying out for development, for a nice mix of offering. And I've got no objection on that front. But whilst I'll say a good chunk of the proposal was quite decent. I like the arches. I like the unique architectural aspect of that. You can't do much because of the thinness of the strip. However, I'm really concerned about we're making decisions without all the information, such as what I asked for this elevation and the viewpoint from the south. We are being provided information which suits the applicant. The information which should be provided to us should be what we need to make decisions. And because we don't have all the information, I feel that, and also I'm still concerned about the safety aspect on the road, that there should be, I think, further tables further up to limit speeding or the risk of that. I'm minded to refuse it, but I think a good adjustment of this proposal with a lower rise development would be ideal. Thank you.
Chair, I've got my hand up because I've actually found an image that I can show Councillor Dabrowska now, the view from Bollo Lane, if she'd like to see it. Yes?
Well, we'll see whether or not it's the sort of thing she was looking for, so you might as well put it up now. Yeah.
I can't promise perfection on that front, but so. But can you see that, Councillor?
Yes, I can.
Can you see that?
I think is that from Antwerp? No, that's from Bollo Lane.
So you're looking at Bollo Lane, looking north.
That's from the bridge.
No, you're actually looking up towards the level crossing where my cursor is. Yeah, it's sorry from the from the bridge. Yes, the building in front of you there is the Pocket Living Development 100 Bollo Lane, and then the top of the building that you see there is Block 3A, and then the stream.
Sorry, Chair. I know that this photo has just been sent in by the applicant.
Yeah,
I'm
yes,
sorry. You know.
No. Can I confirm, Chair? It was already in the pack. It's just been extracted from it and sent to me, so it's not a new drawing.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I wouldn't know how you would know something like that, Joanna, were it true.
The date is on there. The date is on there.
It's on the email.
Yeah.
Nothing to hide, Chair. No, it is in the application documentation. I'd forgotten it was on a series of string lines. The green shows you the other elements of the scheme behind it. So it is in the application documentation and would be in the public domain. So apologies, Councillor Dabrowski. It did exist in the application and it's part of the application. I had just
teeth pulling.
Well, okay, you've made your point. You've made your point, I think, Joanna. Is that what you were looking for?
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Right, thank you. That's good. We always aim to please. So I've got Councillor Ball next.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the general principle of some sort of significant housing-led development on this site, which is a long site and currently somewhat scrappy at the moment, is clearly acceptable. And the additions to the public realm along Bollo Lane are very welcome. But I think there are, probably 4 significant problems, 3 or 4. It doesn't seem to me that the best layout is to have the highest building, the 25-storey building adjacent to 100 Bollo Lane, which I understand is 13 stories, so only about half the height. So there are 2 issues. Is 25 stories too high for this area? And would it not make more sense to have that building a bit further north and to step down to the only immediately adjacent residential neighbours, and also the end, which is close to 2-storey houses in Western Road? So it seems to me that, as I say, probably better to have it lower than 25 anyway, but if you are going to have a 24 or 5-storey block, it'd be better to be more towards the middle of the site rather than right at the end where it has most impact on residential neighbours. I mentioned the loss of the locally listed Frank Pick house, which is unfortunate. The impact on local amenities and facilities, I think, is the other issue, which Councillor Blacker mentioned at length. I mean, this scheme it's adjacent to Acton Gardens, which has seen a huge amount of redevelopment, clearly. So you are packing additional, large amount of development, immediately adjacent to that. So there is going to be a strain on local facilities. So, as I say, I'm not against the principle of development here, but I'm minded to refuse this application in the hope that the scheme comes back that is slightly lower and less obtrusive at the southern end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Anand.
Hello. Yes, I quite welcome the scheme, as the previous speakers have said. And I really do also welcome on page 20, page 28, where details have been given of where the health money will be going, and that has lacked in previous applications. So it's good to see that £250,000 will be given to Acton Health Centre or somewhere primary healthcare within the 1 mile area. It's very welcoming. I am very much on the negative side. I am very much concerned that we've got 2 applications that we're looking at hand in hand, one being a full application, one being a outline planning permission. I know they're right, the applicant's right, but it really does confuse matters, because there are certain elements where full detail is required and other elements where full detail is not required, and it muddies the water. And it's really upsetting to see that. because we want clarity when we're sitting in the committee. And finally, I do actually, again, as I said, I do welcome the fact that that site requires development. I also know that area for all my life. I've lived in that vicinity of that area. And it's just the height element is, as already mentioned, that it could have been altered and brought to the other side, towards the station side, would have probably helped. I'm concerned with the height. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Kumar.
Thank you, Chair. I go back to how I started, I put my questions in, and I know I said a little bit more, but I had to say that in order to put my question. But I mean, I am concerned about the overbearing height, the lack of consultation and addressing, which is part of the mayor's plan as well. You need to look at the resident consultations, address their issues. I don't see that that has been done in a sympathetic manner, and on balance, it's all about this is fine. Nevertheless, in accordance with the policies, they feel that the development is not harmful. I think it would be to the quality of life of the people who are going to live there and the ones who are already living there. There's going to be a huge amount of pressure on the transport infrastructure as well. Quality of life is going to definitely be affected. And you see, I mean, I come back to the point of the residents and the future residents as well, is what sort of quality of life are they going to have? And again, on the parking side, where will people park? I mean, not everybody is going to be able to use the car club provision. They wouldn't be perhaps be able to afford that. So where are these people going to park? I mean, there are hundreds of people who are going to be occupying this particular block. So I mean, I just think that the height, the density is a great concern to me, and I would not be in favor of this. I will not be supporting this application.
Thank you. Councillor Mahmood.
Thank you, Chair. This is a very comprehensive briefing by the officer, and I think we should welcome these type of projects and more additional work in the borough, especially if these type of outcomes or these type of substantial residential units coming through the brownfield, Chair. Some more housing, and in terms of greenery, I could understand we are improving, increasing lots of more trees, 68 to 251, Chair, and I have seen the design review has been followed. Chair, I think by looking at this, the benefits we will be getting through this development is substantial, and I will incline to support this application, Chair.
Thank you. I can see the only hands I can see up are Councillor and Councillor Summers, who've both already spoken, so I'll take it those are legacy hands. Would anybody else like to speak before I move us forward to a vote? Just perhaps if I can summarise from my point of view, I think some of the issues that arise, there's an irony, which is when we have applications which fall short of our the minimum requirements on affordable housing, we have more information about the financial checks and balances of that application than we do when one comes forward which meets the mayor's 35% minimum standard, and therefore as a result it becomes only speculation as to what degree an application could be tweaked and yet remain financially viable. So in a sense, you know, we must always simply deal with things as we have them in front of us. I mean, I would only say in terms of parking, every major development that we put through these days pretty much is car free. So in terms of your point, Councillor Kumar, I don't see you know, that's always going to be the case. It's going to be the case whether an application is 1,500 or 250 units. It's still going to be a car free application. So I like the design of this. I appreciate the concern around the massing, and I appreciate that massing and tall buildings are not popular. But I think the overall design of the way it's been done suits. I think the south side of the site is the right place for the tallest building, whether that building is 20 stories or 25 stories. And I think a reshaping of it could well lead to a loss of facility, the kind of public facilities that the taller buildings allow to take place. So it's not an easy one to come to a clear view on. I think Councillor Blacker gave us a lot of food for thought in how he put it forward, and I think I've been assessing in the back of my own mind against the criteria that he set, and I come to the view that I am content that this development could meet the standards that we set. So I'm likely, well, I say likely, we're about to do it. I'm going to be voting in favour, but it's of course down to colleagues what they choose to do. So the way we'll do it, for those who've not been through this before, whether it's through the participants button on your Zoom or the reactions button, if you've got a snazzy, more up-to-date version like Councillor Ball, we have the yes, the green tick, the no, the red cross, and the raise hand. If you are in favour of the application, in fact, then we'll be using the green tick for yes, and the red cross will indicate you're against it. And if you wish to abstain, it will be the no button. So I'm going to go through this formally now, the raise hand button. So I'm going to go through that formally now. Before we go to the vote, could any members confirm if they were not present for the entirety of the meeting? If you were thrown off of your service or whatever. Okay. There were no amendments to the recommendation raised that in my recall. So can I just check, Katie, that everything is clear?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So we'll go to the vote. Click yes if you wish to vote for, no if you wish to vote against, or raise hand if you wish to abstain. If you could all vote promptly, please, so it's not a matter of waiting to see what other people have done. If you could vote now, please.
I assume I'm not allowed to vote, Steve. It's Craig.
Sadly, Craig, no. That the democratic outreach hasn't gone that far yet. But
Thank you.
Those councillors who are members of the committee only. So what will happen is, for those watching on YouTube, that Katie, a Democratic Services Officer, will tally the votes that appear on the screen that you can't see. And in the interest of transparency, we will tell you what has just happened. Is any councillor not voted who wishes to vote or abstain?
Sorry, Steve. My only question I have, I know it's just that some of the councillors that said no in the conversation haven't voted.
Well, Craig, can you leave me to manage the meeting for the moment? I'm trying to establish if anybody hasn't voted who wishes to vote.
So, Chair, so far we are waiting for Councillor Rice to vote and Councillor Ball and Councillor Cox.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chair. Can I just say
I voted at the beginning. It disappeared.
Yeah, I voted 3 times now, and it's disappeared all 3 times. So I do apologise, Katie. I do apologise, Chair.
Well, okay. For the sake of making this clear, can you just indicate, Miriam, which way you were voting?
4, please, Chair.
4. And John, I took you to saying you'd be voting against, but can you just
I
confirm
did.
that?
Yeah, so I've clicked the no button 3 times and it's come up for a while and then disappears. But yes, I'm voting no.
That's fine.
Okay.
And Councillor Cox, are you voting?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I've voted 3 or 4 times. I'm voting for.
Yeah, that's 4. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's one of those Pareto things. We get 80%. 80% of it works 80% of the time, but never all of it all of the time. So, Katie, do we now have a full result?
I'm just looking now, Chair. Won't be a moment. Seem to have lost Councillor Summers' vote as well. I'm just waiting on Councillor.
Oh yes,
Sorry, Steve, but this seems like a really flawed system. If this was you,
Craig, I must ask you not to interrupt.
But it has a big consequence.
I must ask you not to interrupt. It's not part of the meeting. I'm trying to establish which members are able to vote, and that's my priority at the moment. Councillor Summers.
Yeah, I voted 3 times, but again, it only lasts a second.
Yeah. Okay. Can you just indicate which way that was, please?
4.
4. Thank you.
Okay, bear with me just one moment, please. Okay, so I can confirm that we have 10 votes in favour and 3 against, and those that are against is Councillor Dabrowska, Councillor Kumar and Councillor Ball.
Thank you very much. On that basis,
can we have a full? Sorry, Chair. Can we have a full who voted how? If anybody abstained, because not everybody has voted. I can see.
Nobody has abstained. The vote was 10-3. So the vote is 10-3 in favour. I confirm that the application has been approved. Thank you very much. And thank you to those who participated in this item who will now be leaving us.
Thank you, Chair. I will leave now. Leave the meeting too. Thank you, Chair, and everybody. Good night.
Yeah, thank you, Greg, for your stamina. So apologies to those on other items who've been waiting. You know, generally speaking, we're not at 9:15 before we reach the second item, but clearly some items require a lot more of our time than others. So I'm going to move us forward to the next item, which is, I'll bring my agenda back up, which is the former Southall College, Beaconsfield Road, Southall. And it's Mr. Robertson to present on this.
Yes.
One. John.
Thank you. Right, thanks. This application is to redevelop a redundant 4-storey building and car park on the Southall College site to provide 118 flats. The site is within the Southall Opportunity Area on the edge of the town centre and in development site SOU3, which designates it for residential, education and community uses. It also lies near King's Hall Methodist Church, a local heritage asset. This development would mean the loss of a social infrastructure site, but the college has no need of it for education use. And based on marketing information and an audit of local community facilities, we feel a reasonable case has been made that the site is not needed for other forms of social infrastructure. Of the 118 flats proposed, 42 would be affordable. That's 35% by habitable rooms. The tenure split would be 64% London affordable rent and 36% shared ownership. This will include 5 3-bedroom flats, affordable rented units suitable for families. The proposed building will be an L-shaped block of 5 stories facing Beaconsfield Road, stepping up to 7 stories in the centre of the site, but with the 2 upper floors well set back from the road to visually reduce the massing. The design is contemporary, but it adjoins a large modern college building, and we've approved another 5-storey contemporary building further along Beaconsfield Road. The 5-storey frontage height's also consistent with the guidance figure of 3 to 6 stories for this development site. The design has evolved through extensive pre-application negotiations with planning officers and is considered acceptable. The former King's Hall Church building to the east is locally listed. It's along here. However, it's some distance from the application site, and it wouldn't be viewed along with the key elevation of King's Hall from South Road. And this scheme would replace a fairly nondescript college building and car park with a well-designed building that steps back from King's Hall on the upper floors. So in balance, we think it should enhance the setting of the heritage asset. 50% of the flats proposed would be dual aspect, including all of the 3-bedroom units, with no north-facing single aspect units. And this is considered acceptable given the constraints of the site. The flats have acceptable levels of daylight, taking account of the constraints of its urban location, and overall, it should provide acceptable living conditions in terms of floor space, layout, and visual outlook. All the flats would have private balconies or gardens to London plan standards. Communal amenity areas would be provided on podiums at 5th and 6th floor levels and at ground level, and the amount of outdoor amenity space would exceed the required standards by some margin. The development wouldn't have any unacceptable impacts on adjoining residential occupiers due to the separation distances between it and nearby dwellings, and to the screening effect of boundary trees and outbuildings. Overlooking of the adjoining school to the north would be prevented by angled windows, obscured glazed windows, and screens to balconies on the northern elevation. And this would be supplemented by high fencing and planting on the northern site boundary. Now, there has been a representation from a potential developer of the King's Hall site. This supported the Southall College redevelopment, but sought reassurance it wouldn't prejudice the future development of their own site. However, the applicants have assessed this, making some assumptions, and found no adverse impacts on daylight, outlook, or overlooking, and so that development of the nearby site should not be precluded. This scheme would have high standards of sustainable design and construction, including energy and water efficiency measures, a communal air source heat pump system, and rooftop photovoltaic panels. Potential impacts with regard to air quality, noise, and land contamination can be adequately dealt with by the conditions proposed. In terms of traffic, the scheme would be car-free, apart from 4 disabled spaces. Transport services considered acceptable, subject to conditions and financial contributions. These would include potential extension of the existing CPZ, improvements to cycle infrastructure, footways and bus stops, traffic calming and pedestrian crossing measures, and a restriction on resident parking permits. So overall, the scheme will provide a number of planning and regeneration benefits, including a significant increase in the housing stock, 42 affordable units, and in the order of £700,000 in Section 106 and SIL contributions towards infrastructure and place-based improvements in the area. As such, it's recommended for approval, subject to a Section 106 agreement. Thank you.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah.
Has the chair gone? The chair
It
has
seems
come-
like it. It's gone very quiet.
Yeah, it's not very quiet. Steve?
Steve? I think it's Steve has dropped.
Yeah, Steve
No,
has
I'm not dropped. I forgot to unmute myself. So I thank you for putting that out. I always like to make sure you're paying attention. So in my own head, I've already introduced the next speaker, but we have speakers. First of all, Southall Broadway Councillor Just Kieran Chauhan. So Just Kieran, apologies that you've had to wait a long time this evening. So if you can, you've got 5 minutes, as you will have spotted from Councillor Blacker earlier. So when you're ready, fire away.
Right, okay, thank you. So the sheer scale and height and density of a building that is taking place in Southall in already heavily congested areas is exacerbating urban densification to worrying levels, a view that's shared by Ealing Civic Society in the document that everybody's read, and the majority of Southall's residents. Southall has and continues to receive a high number of dense new sites, which is leading to overcrowding. The COVID-19 pandemic has clearly uncovered the problems this poses for public health, as well as for the mental health of those who do not have adequate access to green space. Now, this proposal exceeds density guidelines in the London plan, and its justification is pointing out another 4 proposals that do the same in the local vicinity. I would add at least 2 more to this list in the nearby area. That's the Park Avenue site that was recently passed by TfL, and the Southall Market site. My question is, what is the point of density guidelines if they'll be repeatedly flouted in Southall, which so many of us repeatedly point out, and completely, the points that we make about dense population in the area and arguably overpopulation are again overlooked. The site where the proposal is based is heavily built already, with an excess of 3,000 homes delivered across the road at Southall Waterside, 400 homes at Southall Sidings just down the road on Park Avenue, hundreds of homes at Merrick Road across the bridge, 125 homes at the Southall Market site, and hundreds in the Red Lion car park. I reel off this list to underline the sheer number of homes that are being built within a half-mile radius of this site, none of which, by the way, are mentioned in this document. In pushing through so much construction, we're putting immense pressure on residents. Despite being 0 car builds, adjacent sites have underlined the fact that parking pressure is acutely increasing as new residents are using roads after permit hours. These measures are simply not enough. Introducing parking reviews afterwards is pointless, as those living along Beaconsfield Road are already suffering from the excesses of overdevelopment. Finally, the plan proposes the introduction of more speed breakers on the Beaconsfield Road to make it safer. And during my years as a councillor, this road I have seen closed on innumerable occasions, constantly facing some kind of work, evidencing a huge burden and stress placed upon residents who were unlucky enough to be surrounded and engulfed by construction and towers. This 5-story build will mean that the many homes between Southall Waterside and this site will be overshadowed by both sides, which will potentially block out further light for people. The planning application makes note of several homes that will be depleted in sunlight, but does not find this problematic. And during this pandemic, our homes and our 4 walls have been occupied constantly. How fair is it to reduce the quality of life and, crucially, the amount of light in homes, which inevitably impacts mental health? Additionally, it notes that future residents will be able to see into the college, and is this safe in safeguarding terms? Importantly, it will halve the capacity of Southall College, which is hugely detrimental considering the numbers that will move into Southall soon. There may be capacity in neighbouring schools now, but I do not think this will be anywhere near sufficient for the influx of people that we will soon see. We're building more homes, but losing key social infrastructure. And all these factors contribute to poorer quality of life for those in Southall. Furthermore, the properties will not benefit residents in Southall. The recent ruling against Manor Road was partly predicated upon the dismantling of the idea of genuinely affordable homes, accessibility for working class people and low income earners who form most of Southall's population. People here need social rents, not more flashy luxury apartments that no one will be able to afford. Moreover, over half of the flats in this development are one bedroom apartments, which does not respond to the London Borough of Ealing's requirements of 3-bedroom homes. Instead, the developer has been allowed to make 2-bedroom apartments suitable for 4 people. Instead of fewer flats that are bigger, they are allocating more people to smaller spaces. Finally, 9 2 to 3 bedroom apartments that are affordable. And I repeat, only 9 family-sized apartments will be placed at affordable rents, with a handful more available shared ownership, which in itself has been repeatedly proved to be unaffordable for low-income families. The vast majority of apparently family-sized homes, that's 35 of the 2-bed, 3-person flats, are available at market prices. Southall's always been an area famous for its community and its settled families, which is all being undone by the raft of developments in the area. And finally, with all the accumulated construction, we're extremely concerned for the air quality of the town, which is particularly important during this climate crisis. Residents at the boundary of Southall Waterside have suffered greatly because of poor air quality. This construction site condemns them to further poor air quality due to construction, which is particularly worrying as it borders 2 primary schools. This issue has been completely dismissed by the report, which failed to mention anything about ongoing air quality issues from Southall Waterside. Do we expect children to inhale more fumes and be subjected to noise pollution from this site during their playtime? This is not to mention increased fumes that will inevitably arrive after people have moved in from deliveries of food and parcels. And once again,
Can you
COVID
wind up, please?
Terrifying light on health inequalities, I'm almost there, sorry, Chair, faced by BAME communities. We must do everything to keep our air cleaner, including considering how construction contributes to this. Any developers approaching Southall should show sensitivity to this fact by clearly outlining their plans for air quality monitoring during construction and after, which is another gaping omission in this plan.
I'll have to ask you to stop there, I'm afraid.
Okay,
Thank
well,
you. Thank you.
I think I've conveyed my points. I had a few other paragraphs, but there we go.
Time flies, doesn't it? Time flies. But thank you very much for that contribution. We have a representative from the applicant, Isabel McGeever. Isabel, you with us still?
I am, yeah. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
So once again, as in the previous application some time back, but you have 3 minutes. The clock is in front of you.
Sorry, Chair. Chair, we don't normally have a representative of the applicant unless there's been a member of the public speaking in objection, do we?
Well, I was asked to make a ruling about this earlier today, and I determined that given that objections were going to be made, that it struck me as appropriate to allow the applicant's representative to speak, which is what they're going to do, John. Okay, carry on when you're ready, please, Isabel.
Thank you. Cheers. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to address committee this evening. I would like to use this time to briefly reiterate the conclusions drawn in the officer's report to the committee, which confirms officers' support for the scheme. I would also like to draw on some key positive proposals and clarify some information relating to the proposed development. The site, which was previously under ownership of Southall College, was surplus to the college's requirements, as covered in detail in the committee report. The site was marketed publicly when the applicant purchased it, and no interest was received for continued use of it for an educational purpose or for an alternative community facility. Indeed, the college had progressed to sell the site to a free school, who subsequently withdrew as their due diligence revealed an extensive oversupply of schools in the locality already. This is further emphasised by the community infrastructure audit submitted with the application, which assessed an array of local facilities to ensure there would be capacity within these to accommodate any increased demand from the proposals. No deficits were found in the audit. Furthermore, the sale of part of the college site on an unconditional basis to Stonegate Homes allowed the college funding to continue with their services when they may have otherwise been unable to continue operating due to financial deficits. The proposals also offer a large number of key positives for the community and future residents. These include, but are not limited to, the delivery of 35% affordable, equating to the delivery of 42 affordable homes. 27 homes will be London affordable rent, equating to 64% of the affordable housing offer. The delivery of 44 family-sized homes, a mix supported by the council's housing officers. Amenity space in excess of requirements has been provided on site, including the children's play space. Delivery of a highly sustainable development which achieves a 69% on-site reduction in CO2 emissions, far exceeding and almost double the GLA's 35% target. development of a largely car-free scheme, except for disabled spaces, given the site's sustainable location, ensuring future residents will utilise sustainable methods of transportation. Provision of a modest-sized scheme on an allocated site designed to a high quality and respectful of adjoining uses, as well as adjacent proposals. Furthermore, there have been very limited objections, and we have received no objections from statutory consultees, including highways, trees, or affordable housing. In summary, we agree with the officer's conclusion. The application scheme constitutes sustainable development in accordance with the NPPF and local plan, provides much needed new housing for the borough and London as a whole within this key opportunity area. The proposal is really of a relatively modest scale and responds appropriately to the immediate surroundings. It is on this basis that we support the recommendation of officers of the council and trust that members of the committee will agree with their conclusions and resolve to grant planning permission this evening.
Thank you very much. We'll now move, as we did in the previous item, to questions to the officer about the report and presentation. Councillor Dabrowska, you'll kick us off.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions. Firstly, the local ward councillor mentioned with regards to the educational provision. So we all know that the gasworks quite nearby will explode the child yield and the need for education. Prior to this application or during the application, was there an assessment done of how much educational space is required? Not necessarily at the college level of the age, but generally educational provision in the vicinity. So that'd be interesting to assess. And also, I was looking at tables with regards to the habitable rooms and units and affordable housing. Unfortunately, I've had to do some maths in order to work out what I wanted. I am too also disappointed that out of 118 units, only 11 are of the large size. I'm very disappointed where family units are. The borough is begging for large family units. We see a lot of 1-2 bedroom units being empty. They're not selling. The bigger property units should be on offer. So why didn't the applicant consider, together with the council, more affordable units but of family size? Thank you.
Thank you. John, if you could pick those up while we wait to see if anybody else has got questions on schools and the number of large units.
Sure. Well, as part of the application, there was an audit of community facilities, including education facilities, submitted as one of the application documents, which looked at existing provision, school places, and what's being proposed. I mean, that's quite a difficult exercise because it covers quite a wide area. But that process didn't identify any shortfall of education facilities, and in any event, there was no indicated demand or need for this site to be used for a school. So I think on that basis, we're happy that it could be used for residential rather than to provide any school provision. On the affordable housing and the size of units, maybe it seemed to us that 37% of all the units are large, or 2 and 3 bedroom, which are suitable for family accommodation at some level. I'd also say that this scheme was looked at quite closely by the housing department, and they strongly supported both the mix and tenure of it. So we tend to rely on what they tell us.
If I may, Chair, just clarification of that last answer. As councillors, we get updates, we get training, we get told, yes, we do need family units. So I'm a bit miffed that out of the big ones, there are only 11. You know, there doesn't seem to be a parity between what the applications show and what's approved or what's provided compared to what we're told as policy. Thank you.
So is there a particular reason that we don't have more 3 bedroom and above, John? I think is the nub of the question.
Right, I would say that when the scheme first came in, it didn't have any 3-bedroom units in it at all. We discussed it with the housing department. They asked us to negotiate some more, and we got 5 3-bedroom units added to the scheme. So that's how it developed. And we thought with these 3-bedroom units and the 2-bedroom 4-person units as well, that seemed a reasonable mix, and the housing department supported that revision.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any other hands up for questions, so I shall throw the matter open for discussion. Councillor Ball, first in.
Yeah, just very briefly. I mean, I think I'm minded to support this. I think this application is perfectly reasonable. Yeah, I mean, Councillor Dubrovska raised the issue, which is that in Southall in particular, as we always hear, there is a particular demand for larger units. So I think all I would say as a comment is that I think I'm grateful that officers were able to negotiate the 5 3-bed 4-person flats, but you know, sort of all power to their elbow to negotiate even more larger units in future applications, particularly at that end of the borough. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Summers.
Yeah, I'll also be very brief. I heard, you know, Councillor Chauhan made some very good points, and I appreciate that, you know, Southall's been getting a lot of housing delivered there. Arguably, I mean, places like Northolt, in where I represent, we would like to have more housing, new housing, but it's just the way, you know, the cookie crumbles. I guess there's lots of vacant sites or sites which are available for redevelopment down there. I think this site looks like it's been, you know, well thought out, obviously been through several iterations, but I'm happy with the affordable housing proportion, and I'm minded to vote for it.
Thank you very much. I'm looking for other indications. I see no other indications. In that case, we'll move to the vote. I mean, just from my point of view, I see no basis in planning grounds. Councillor Anand is jumping in there. Hold fire until I ask you to vote, please. I see no basis in planning terms to turn this application down, notwithstanding the sort of perfectly well expressed points that Councillor Chauhan made. It seems, in the great scheme of things, a perfectly coherent and thought through application, so I'll be supporting it. So, to repeat what I said in the previous vote, before we go to the vote, could any member confirm if you've not been present for the entirety of the item? Okay, I'll take it that you all have been. There were no amendments discussed or recommended. Can I check then, Katie, that everything is clear?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. We'll now go to the vote, or at least we will make another attempt at doing it in the technological fashion. Click yes if you wish to vote for, no if you wish to vote against, and raise your hand if you wish to abstain, and vote now, please. Still a few missing. So if you can log what we have, Katie, and then we'll have to go through the people we haven't got.
So we've only got 8 votes so far. So D. Martin.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got 9. I've got myself, Councillor Cox, Councillor Mahmood, Councillor Lauren Wall, Councillor Seema Kumar, Councillor Ray Wall, Councillor Joanna Dubrovska, Councillor D. Martin, and Councillor Aisha Raza.
Okay, I've only got 8 showing at the moment and 1 abstention. I still need to see or find out the vote for Councillor Ball, Councillor Rice.
Okay, we'll take those 2 first. Councillor Ball, can you confirm?
Yeah, confirm that I'm voting for this application, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Rice?
Yes, I confirm that I'm voting for, and I've this time voted 5 times, so I apologise again.
Yeah. Well, it never appeared on my screen. It's weird, isn't it?
Oh,
absolutely weird.
Strange. I don't know if it's a problem at my end. Sorry, I could.
No. I mean, I don't know what it is. It's because it's not exactly the same people as last time. Anybody else missing? Katie?
Anand.
Praveen? I think you voted yes prematurely, so I'm assuming you're still voting yes.
Yes, Chair.
Yeah.
Okay. Who else? Still missing.
Is it Councillor Summers?
Yes, I've also voted
Summers,
5
yes.
times. I've also voted 5 times yes for.
Yes. It's 4. So I think that completes the set.
At the moment, I can only see that there are. Oh no, because we've got an abstention as well.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's fine. So I can confirm that it's 12 for, and there is 1 abstention by Councillor Cox.
Thank you very much. So the result is 12 in favour, none against, with 1 abstention. I confirm the application has been approved. Thank you. That moves us on to the 3rd and final application for this evening. 140 Wales Farm Road, Acton, W36UG, known as the Perfume Factory. And this report is by Mr. Ricketts. Paul, over to you.
Yes, good evening, Chair and members of the committee. This is an application that's also subject to a briefing note that was submitted earlier today prior to the committee meeting. There are 2 points that I'd like to clarify. So the HS2, the safeguarding has been the safeguard, and that's the HS2 have got a holding objection that they will have been negotiating with the applicant and developer regarding the matter. It's far advanced. They expect to be able to sign off on it, but in terms of procedure, a mission cannot be issued on the site until that objection is withdrawn. If the objection is not withdrawn, then it will be the Secretary of State who will then have to deal with the application. The other matter is one of condition 26 that has been amended to ensure that it can be deliverable in terms of how energy monitoring contracts are entered into. I'm now going to screen with the it's slowly coming here. I've got screen 2, no, I want the other one, don't I? Sorry about this. I've got a PowerPoint. Come on. Isn't always the way. Okay. Is this showing at all? Yes.
No, not to me.
You're not showing?
No.
Okay, let's say it's not responding, that's the reason. Is it showing now?
No.
So, come on. Is that showing now, Councillor?
Not seeing anything as yet. Have you selected the window and then before pressing share?
Yeah, well, I thought I had. Is that coming up at all?
No.
Not yet. Can you see the red line around your selected screen?
I've got it blown up.
So when you've done share screen and then it brought up a picture of your open windows, you've double clicked the correct window.
Yeah, no. There. It's another monitor.
If it's unable to display your screen, maybe if one of the other officers is able to share it on your behalf.
Is that any joy there? Is one coming at all?
No. But well, we can't see what you're doing, so we're not sure whether it's right. But
oh dear.
So we're not. But possibly, as Katie said, if you could email the presentation to somebody who could do that, so email it to Alex or to.
Yeah, you can email it to me. I can't see it in the folder, so.
Okay. This is crazy. Application window.
We're viewing it now. Well, we're viewing something. We're viewing your screen, but it's not, I think, what you wanted
did see something.
Yeah, we're not seeing. We're seeing I'm seeing something that's got auto save at the top, so it's a.
Yeah, that should be the one.
And your cursor, but all I'm seeing I'm not seeing.
It's just a cursor.
Properly. Yeah. So the auto save bit's now moved up to the top left-hand corner, but the rest of the screen is blank. So there's a small band, but most of it's there.
Yeah.
Have you emailed it to Alex?
No, I'll do that now.
If you could do that straight away, and then if you can,
yeah, we'll do.
If you do salvage it, then great.
Chair, I seem to have located the PowerPoint. Is it the PowerPoint of?
Is it that one?
The plan? Oh, it's come up now.
We have it. Yeah.
Through Factory North. Is that it?
That's it.
It's up now. Yes.
Oh, brilliant.
I think the problem there was it's very dense. I think it just took a long time to load.
To load up. Okay. All right. Thank you.
So we're looking at it now, Paul. So if you can
all
put
right,
it
lovely.
on slideshow.
Onto slideshow. Yep. So this is an application site that has been to committee since 2016 several times. The largest site, north part of the site that is coming forward for an application. It came to the committee. You're not seeing it. It's not yet on slideshow.
You now need to click the left-hand icon there
from beginning.
From beginning.
All right.
Now we're.
Is it now showing that now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
We're cooking on gas.
We're cooking on gas. Okay.
It's not
okay, solar powered then. Yeah, so this is a site that has been subject to a number of applications and come through to committee several times since 2016. At that stage, it was for the entire site. Subsequently, the southern part of the site has been sold off to Imperial College, and they've now started development on that site. The site is a cleared site. It used to have local listed buildings. That's no longer the case now. Cleared site. There's compound for the Imperial College site that is currently being developed. Next slide shows the tall buildings that have been approved and are under construction, apart from number 3, I think, in the North Acton area. We've got North Acton Station here. This is the Holbrook House site, which is student accommodation. There's this, which is portal. This is the Imperial Glade, and it's another portal application. Here are the sites here. So you've got Wales Farm Road, which is the Imperial site, which is south. Holbrook House, which you can see here indicated. Here is the portal site, just here, almost opposite diametrically opposite the application site. And then the larger 4 Portal Way site further here to the that's north, east, south, southwest. Here now is the chief change. So this is an application, as I say, that came to committee in May 2018, where we resolved to grant permission. The developer or the applicant has subsequently joined partnership with Telford Homes or house builders, and also under negotiation with a registered provider to help to change the housing mix on the site. So where we had a very large entrance portal, there's now a much smaller one, reduced from 9 to 4.5 meters, and there's now empty space linking E and B. Here is again just the change in terms of the ground floor plan. The scheme, the ground floor plan that we saw, that was resolved to be approved in May 2018 to what is now currently the state here. So as you can see, the massing of the scheme in terms of footprint and the overall bulk of buildings are still the same. There's some minor changes that have taken place. This is in terms of providing an additional staircase in light of Grenfell. There's also been a change in materials as well, increasing the amount of brick facade on the building, again because of Grenfell. Again, this is just to show just how slight the changes are from the original scheme to what is now being proposed here. Again, this just shows the staircase, and also that a lift has been removed and 1 bed has changed to a studio flat. Again, this is just shown in, sorry, I've flown through here. Again, just showing just 3-bed, 5-person units, just how cleverly they've re-altered the scheme to try and get better sized units, and also to reflect that there's more affordable in here. It's traditional affordable now. It's no longer discounted market rent. It's now shared ownership at roughly 40% and affordable 6%. This is because Telford Homes, the house builders, come on board, and also that a registered provider is now on board, and they're better able to deliver to a scheme that meets our policy objectives. Here we're just seeing the amenity space that is provided on the top, and also we can see here play space and the like, balconies. Again, showing the amenity space cleverly. We're making best use of what is a just under half a hectare site. Basement with basically a significant amount of cycle parking, secure cycle parking is. This is the mezzanine floor that's showing. So you've got blocks A, which is affordable. A and C are affordable. Block B is the open market. There's 25-story and 12, 16-story, 14 stories. Again, just indicative of the first floor throughout the scheme, the roof plan, and some sections following through, just to give an idea as to the scale and bulk of the scheme. Key on this is the safeguarding. So this is the issue that HS2 have been talking to the developer and also to ourselves, and how the safeguarding direction would affect the scheme. Effectively, we knew all about this element. So this element just had basically like soft landscaping, so the buildings themselves would not be affected. If, however, safeguarding is required for a large part of the site, which is the blue element, as you can see here, it would significantly affect the scheme. The developers are in negotiations with HS2 to ensure that there's a contractual agreement, so that if anything happens, if HS2 do require that, then that land will then be taken. And what has been decided is that if that does take place, a fresh application would then be submitted to the council. Right, I'm going to stop sharing now. Or shall I just leave it on here? Are you happy for me to just leave it on there? Yeah. Yeah. So there have been a small amount of changes. The reduction from 380 to 376 units on the site. And I've set out on the key also on this site is that it is an OPDC site, which has been delegated to us to make a decision on the application site. OPDC have reviewed the committee report and made comments therein. Key things here is that it does comply, or it has been considered in accordance with their placemaking policy, single placemaking policy, and the other real difference is the amount of affordable housing and the actual split. So OPDC tend to operate on a 60-40 split, which is basically 60% shared ownership or intermediate and 40% affordable rent. We, on this application, have been able to get a 60% for affordable rent and 40% shared ownership, something that's supported by housing policy. And OPDC accept that because we have an established housing need. They're prepared to accept that element of the site. The application is recommended for approval subject to conditions and Section 106 agreement, all things being the same as agreed, except that from 2018 we've agreed indexation from the figures that were reported and agreed by committee at that time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's get my video back on. So just for clarity for the committee board, just around this HS2 issue.
Yeah.
In a sense, if I've understood it, in a sense, it's a kind of red herring. We're just being asked to assess the application, and what happens between HS2 and the applicant may result in something else happening.
Yes.
But in the meantime, we assess the application as is.
That's correct. Thank you for that, Councillor.
Okay,
very clear.
Just so that I think try to get that one resolved as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions? Some of you may have been part of the original application. There are clearly some changes since then. Councillor Rice.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the application is quite honest about the fact that there's going to be pressures on public transport with this new housing, and a lot has been said about the nearby tube station. And so I just wondered if there was really any discussions that were made as regard the bus routes. I mean, for example, I can't make judgments on all the bus routes there, but certainly the 487 is always really very much a packed bus. And it's not a particularly regular bus route. So I just wonder if there's anything that we could do to maybe discuss with the TfL in order to perhaps get more buses running along those routes, and that might help considerably, because especially since we're putting so much housing into that particular area and that particular hub. So it might. I just don't know if that would be at all possible, please. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take Councillor Anand.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just to get clarification. Firstly, I want to, for the record, Chair, I want to disclose that I live quite close to the site, but I don't feel there's any precedent interest, and I think I can continue with this planning committee. On page 196 of Q52, there is on recommendations of this SO 106.
Yes.
There is a point there saying financial contributions, and it goes down to health. can we please, is there clarity on that, where that health is going to go? Because in the past, we've had that there hasn't been clarity. So can we have a clarity that where that health is, that 500,000 is going to go? Is it going to go within 1 mile of primary healthcare GPs? And secondly, money towards, is there any, what is the money towards the North Acton Station? Financial contribution, is that what is there any particular project? I mean, I know there's a lift that is long and waiting for in that area, in that station. Is there any allocation to what improvement is going to be done at North Acton Station? Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to pick those up, please?
Yes, certainly. So on the bus routes, we haven't discussed bus routes. TfL wanted money towards North Acton Station, and so we've agreed that sum of money. I think it's something like 400. Where are we? Yeah. So if you look at the under recommendation under subsection 4, the contributions which include North Acton Station and accessibility is £816,600. So the TfL will actually be making a decision on that. I think the priority is North Acton Station rather than necessarily towards bus routes. And then again, in terms of bus routes, it's all about revenue. So I think the money significantly is going to go to North Acton Station. In terms of the question, yes, so there's no particular project, Councillor, to how that money is to be spent by TfL. In terms of the money on health, it's £500,000, and what the OPDC, because this is the OPDC area, what they've said, it's still under section 4. Financial contributions are ring fenced in accordance with the OPDC, so it's for use in the Ealing part of the OPDC or East Acton ward in the first instance. So yes, that has been, it is ring fenced, and that's in what those are the areas.
Chair,
So okay.
Chair, may I come back in?
Yes.
Can we have clarity on that? Because that will be something, it's already the area is overstretched with the GPs side and also the North Acton Station. So can we have clarity? If we were to approve this, can we have a condition that there is clarity on that, please? And I think OPDC are present, so they can clarify that too. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, can I make a comment on that or
yes,
respond to that? One of the things that we do have within the North Acton area is that when space has been made available for health services, they've not been taken on board. So the whole issue is about revenue. So I think I'm thinking of the Fairview scheme that's quite close by. They've had a community facility there, health facility. It's just been a shell, and no one's actually come on board to take that on, because it's the issue then is about revenue rather than just about space. But again, the OPDC, I think Emma Wilkinson is here. She may be able to help on that, but certainly it's something that the OPDC are quite clear that's how they'd want the money to be spent within their area, within the Ealing part of OPDC or the East Acton ward in the first instance.
Okay, I've got Emma Williamson from OPDC. Emma, can you offer clarification on this?
Yeah, I mean, we're still basically working through a social infrastructure study that relates to our local plan modifications that will be completed shortly, which will identify where within our area, which may be within the North Acton area, we would be looking to increase facilities. And we're also working positively and collaboratively with the CCG on this.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Kumar next.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted clarification on the children's play space area. It says prior to first occupation of that relevant part of the development, details of the children's play area shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local authority. Is that going to be at a later stage, or Has that already been done? I mean, how does that actually fit in with you know, as far as trying to understand how that works?
Yeah, certainly. So on a lot of these things, it's a case of ensuring that we've got the development actually built, and then looking at ensuring that the facility itself is provided prior to occupation. It gives the developer and ourselves a great chance to look at the greater detail of the scheme and how we bring forward that amenity space. It's quite a mixture of amenity space here for under fives and 12 up to 12 years of age. Really, it is an intense scheme, so they have to be very creative in how this play space is provided. That's all looking in terms of the principle of well overlooked and well surveilled play space for children in terms of safety and enjoyment.
Thank you very much. I see no other hands in terms of the questions, so I'll move on to the discussion. If you wish to participate in the discussion. Councillor Anand again.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a follow-up exactly from what I was saying. I think we're asked, that area is overstretched, approve an application, and the OPDC are still not confirming that the money will be actually spent within the 1 mile radius or in at least the East Acton ward. There is no clarity of where the money is going to go at North Acton Station. There is OPDC go all the way to Wembley Stadium and up to border. Sorry, I don't know. Someone's hissing. Hello,
Yeah, somebody. Could people mute themselves if they're not speaking, please?
Sorry, I'll just repeat that very quickly. I'll try to.
Paul, Paul, I think it's you that's.
I'm moving my. Oh, sorry, I'm moving my. Oh, sorry, I'm moving my.
You could mute.
Microphone.
You could mute, please.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah.
Chair, I'll start again. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just feel that the borders of OPDC stretch from North Acton Station to all the way up to Wembley Stadium, and not to be given clarity that the residents of North Acton, who are going to suffer from this application and have objected, are not going to benefit from this application because OPDC are not clarifying where this money is going to be spent. They're not clarifying that or giving reassurance to us. So I would ask committee to put a condition, if we are allowed to, that this money for the fire is actually spent within the 1 mile radius of the development. And two, we do really need to have, if applications are going to come in front of us, I think we do need to have clarity. I mean, North Acton Station, money is being put aside for North Acton Station, but what are we going to do there? We should be told. We should be able to assess that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, well, I'll take advice about the first part of it. I mean, it's TfL station, so I think it's rather up to them what they do with it. But perhaps, Jackie, in terms of our ability to put in a geographically limited condition, such as Councillor Anand has talked about, where do we stand?
I think the difficulty of that is that where no decision has been made yet as to what the best use of the money would be, to put a geographical limit on it wouldn't have a justification at the moment. I think in the sense that if something was just beyond a mile, it could still be of benefit to the scheme. So I think that I wouldn't say that the mile could be justified where it's a decision, as you said, that TfL will be taking ultimately for the best in the best interests of improvement to the station.
Okay, thank you. And Emma, your hand's up again. Perhaps some further clarity.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. So on the kind of health centre piece, basically CCG's current model is to basically build and rent really large centres, so they would have really big catchment areas. So I don't mean to say that this money would go towards something that wouldn't serve the residents of the North Acton area. I'm just saying that we don't know exactly where that would be located, but it would be something that was meeting the needs of North Acton residents. And then also, if I may come back on the North Acton point, there is actually a scheme for further improvement of North Acton Station, but that is actually being revisited at the moment with TfL in collaboration, Ealing and OPDC, and so there will be further plans that come forward later. So we definitely know that there are things and schemes that are coming forward that it would go towards, but we don't have the specifics of that as yet.
And presumably the total amount of budget available from whatever the different sources are would determine the kind of project that they undertook.
Indeed.
Okay, which our contribution, although it looks impressive, would only be a part of what's necessary. Okay, I'm with you. Okay, anybody else wish to contribute? Okay, in that case, just by way of summing up, we have what seems to me to be a tidying up of a previously approved application without a basis, in my view, to come to a different view to that which was come to in 2018. So I shall be supporting it. Moving on, before we go to the vote, can I check that can anybody indicate if they've not been present for the entirety of the item? We haven't had any amendments recommended from the debate. Katie, as DSO, can I check everything is okay? Everything is clear?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We'll now go to the vote because we're nothing if not persistent. As before, click yes if you wish to vote for, no if you wish to vote against, and raise hands if you wish to abstain. And we'll come to you if you're unsuccessful in that enterprise. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got 8 down here. Councillor Summers has indicated by chat that he is voting for if he's not visible, which he isn't. So I'll run through the ones, Katie, that I can't see. Councillor Cox.
In favour, Chair. It's not working again.
Thank you. I think Councillor Dubrovska's voted in favour via chat. But we've already got her tick there. Councillor Rice.
I don't write anything in chat.
Oh right, wasn't it? Sorry, it started with a J-O and I thought it was you.
No, it's John Ball.
No, it's John Ball. It's John Ball. John Ball was voting in favour. Yeah.
I vote for, please, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Who else don't we have? I think, is that everybody, Katie?
Yes, so it looks as though everybody is voting for except for Councillor Anand, who has abstained.
Okay, so I can say that we have 12 votes in favour, no votes against, and the proposal is therefore carried. That concludes the meeting. The date of the next meeting, I've got it in front of me at the minute. I'm sure it's, somebody got the date of the next meeting in front of them. It's in February anyway.
Yeah, so yes, of February.
17th Feb.
17th of February. That's great. Well, thank you everybody for your patience and perseverance this evening. Thank you to all the officers for their participation and support. Stay safe in the course of the next few weeks and months. And I look forward to seeing you all somewhere soon. Good night.
Thank you, Councillor. Take care now.
Good night.
Thank you, Chair. Good
Stay
night.
safe.